Good morning. This is John Hawley from Seals and Recovery. I'm going to be having coffee talk with my friend Doug here, McCrory. And kidding aside, this is our third podcast. And after I finished the second podcast with Evan, who had a great story, I said Doug will be voluntold to do the next one. So Doug works a great program. In AA, he actually picked up 26 years on Sunday.
That's it.
And he picked up a chip at a meeting this morning we go to, and it was great to see it and him express his journey with people and his story. But anyhow, John Hawley, still an alcoholic. I'm going to turn it over to Doug, and I'm going to some preliminary stuff. If you could tell us about where you grew up, your family life, your brother, sister, your parents, and what interested you in getting into the Navy SEALs, and some career highlights or lowlights, and we'll get into recovery and what got you into recovery.
Sounds good. Well, hi, my name's Doug, and I'm an alcoholic. And for me to have said that is a monumental undertaking. I could not ever even imagine that I was alcoholic, and I never in a million years thought I'd say those words. And now I'm proud to be an alcoholic, and I've heard people share that they're grateful or proud, or I thought, what the hell are you talking about? That's insane. But this is such a good way of life for me, and it was an absolute game changer, life changer. But yeah, John, I was born in Newark, New Jersey.
Newark,
New Jersey.
What exit is that? It's like 3 or 4, right? On
it's up by 14.
It's by 14. That's right. The lower one's down south. 14 and 15 of the Goethals Bridge.
Yeah, Goethals is around there.
Right.
My father grew up over by the Goethals Bridge.
Right.
And my mom was a nurse in the hospital up there. I was born in August, and Whitney Houston was in the hospital with me.
There you go.
I found out years later.
You made it to recovery. She didn't.
I made it. Whitney's
Who knew
dead.
back then? She's and her daughter too.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. I mean, this is a brutal disease. It'll take your life. No questions asked. But I grew up in New Jersey. My father was a teacher. My mom was a nurse. And when I was young, 4 years old, they moved us down to the middle of New Jersey. I grew up in a town called Princeton Junction, which is a tiny little town along the railroad tracks, and a little farm community down there. And I grew up there. But my family, my grandmother, alcoholic. My father was alcoholic. His youngest brother was alcoholic. My mother's family, her parents were fine. Her mother's entire family were all alcoholics. So it was in my background, although I never knew it. First time I ever got drunk, I was an infant. My parents had me at my grandparents' house, and my dad's mom was feeding me drinks until they noticed, hey, can't hold his head up anymore. Look out. My mother never drank. My father, I never saw him drink at home. I only saw them have like a glass of wine or a beer. I did not grow up around alcohol other than my grandmother. And when you went to a party where my grandmother was, you had to watch out from the time I was a little kid, because she'd be walking around with a lit cigarette and burn you or hurt you or whatever. So you had to steer clear. But alcohol wasn't even a factor in my life as I was growing up, other than my father worked all the time. And he was never home during the week. It was just me and my mom and my brothers and sister. I wound up having 2 brothers and a sister, and none of them have had any alcoholic issues. But my dad wasn't around, and years later I put it together that he wasn't around because he was out feeding his addiction while he was working.
When did that become prevalent? Like we talk about getting some runway behind you. When did you realize that your dad was there was avoidance with your dad because he was drinking? Was that later in the teens? Was it a reflection? Was it an epiphany?
More of a reflection. My father had he had a seizure when I was probably about 13, 14 years old. He was cutting the yard and passed out. He was on, the lawnmower was still running. He was laying in the backyard on his back, and man, I was scared to death and thought, oh my God, he's going to die. Praying that he'd be all right. And they took him away in an ambulance, brought him back, and he didn't have any more issues, but it was partially due to his alcohol use. But he never drank in the house. I never saw him drunk. Then when I was probably about 17 years old, one day my dad came home and he was drunk as hell. It was the first time I'd ever seen him drunk.
Really?
Yeah. And that was the only time I've ever seen him.
Was it
drunk.
violent? Was it outbursts? Just
He
different
was
personality?
My dad was a happy drunk, but he just he came home. He was staggering, and I was like, holy cow. So I never grew up around this big alcohol thing, but I always heard it in the background.
Was the noise in the background coming from your mother and father, argumentative stuff, or what do you mean by it being in the background?
The background was my grandmother, my mom's mom, would talk about her family, and she pulled away from her family completely. She was the youngest kid, and her father was an alcoholic. Her brothers and sisters were alcoholic, and she was the caretaker as second to the youngest. And I never saw her drink. Didn't see my mom drink very much. There was no alcohol really in our house. But my grandmother was absolutely militant about, doing the right thing, cleaning up, being
Was
a
that
good
your
person.
grandmother on your father's side or mother's side?
My mother's mother.
Okay. What was your mother's maiden name?
Wolf.
Wolf.
Yeah.
So you're Irish German.
I'm Scottish,
Scottish.
Irish, German.
So you had a built-in drinking problem.
I've got German on both sides of my family.
Right. So
big
so
time.
I joke I'm Norwegian Irish. So I'm like this was going to happen.
Oh yeah.
So
it's in my blood.
It's in your blood, right? Right.
And my grandmother, we'd go to my father's parents' house, and they had a beautiful bar in the bottom of their house. And every Sunday we'd go to the basement.
That's a Northeast thing, in a basement.
And we would go to the basement, and they had a spectacular bar with every kind of booze you could imagine. And my grandmother would be sauced. And as a little kid, I remember sitting at the bar eating maraschino cherries and playing with all their little alcohol bottles and little bar Gucci stuff. Yeah, and we'd be playing. They had a Confederate soldier with a rifle shooting at a bottle of Southern Comfort, and you put a penny on the top of his rifle, and you'd cock this thing back and shoot it. It would shoot the penny into the bottle of Southern Comfort. And I remember all that stuff when I was a kid, but I didn't drink myself. I didn't see people drinking other than my grandmother. So it wasn't prevalent in my life. Mm-hmm. But my father wasn't around, and I remember missing him. My dad was a teacher, though, and he brought home books for kids. It's beautiful illustrated books, and they had underwater demolition teams. Just book after book for like 6th, 7th graders to read about UDT. And that's where I started to learn about the teams. And I was
they wouldn't let those books in kids' libraries
you would never
because of the woke generation. You would never have any of that. Forget about it.
And I couldn't read a word, but I remember flipping through, looking at these guys. I thought, oh, man, that looks cool. And when I was 3 years old, my mother gave me a little scuba diver that you put baking soda in the back.
Oh, yes,
Feet would kick, and I just played with these scuba divers thinking
They also had the submarine too. Remember that?
They had submarines. They had all that.
The baking powder.
So I was always into diving. Flipper was a show on TV, and kids with their dolphin and diving.
Mike Nelson, Sea Hunt.
Mike Nelson. I used to watch Mike Nelson Sea Hunt. And so I always wanted to do that. And I'd watch war movies and then think, I don't want to do that. But I grew up, my birthday's in August, so I was always the youngest kid in my class.
Yep, because you started in that fall. Yeah.
And I was always, of all my friends, I was always a head shorter than everybody. But I always hung out with people that were like at least a head taller than me.
Is your brother older?
I am the oldest.
You're the oldest, okay.
I'm the oldest. And my brother's a head taller than me. Right. Both my brothers are taller than me. So I was always the smaller guy, and it didn't really make that much difference, but I was never going to let that be an issue. So
Right.
I said, whatever. If somebody wanted to fight, okay, we'll fight. If somebody wanted to go play football, basketball, baseball, I always said, yeah, I'm going, whatever. I would do whatever anybody else did, but I was never going to get left behind. And a lot of times I couldn't keep up or play as well. But when people wanted to quit, I'd be the guy. I was like, nope, come on, let's keep going. Till everybody else went home, till it was like over. I was like, no, I may not be able to beat you one-on-one, but I'll stay here until you quit. Cause
You're going to leave a mark.
Yeah, I'm going to leave a mark. So when they said, you got to go to Buzz, this is quitting, I was like, whatever, I'll still be here. And I remember being at Buzz. And
Tell me how you... did you go to MEPS in Brooklyn? Where did you do your MEPS? At Fort Hamilton?
In 10th grade, I had to... we had to write a story, a paper for school about what you want to do in your career. And where I went to school, everybody became doctors, lawyers, Wall Street people. And I wrote to a recruiter. I said, hey, I want to be in the teams. I wanted to be in UDT because that's what I knew about. And they sent me this book back that had nothing in it, but the very back it said, UDT SEAL, and I started reading about SEALs.
Was it the old Link magazine that we used to get?
No, it was a recruiter book with every enlisted rate in the Navy.
Oh, like the NECs? Or,
yeah, it was like a catalog of NECs that you could get in the Navy.
For the mere mortals that are watching this, NECs are Naval Enlisted Code, and that's your designated for what you do. Officers have a different system of designation, but for the enlisted guy, you go to recruiter, they give you qualify for something, and you look through a catalog, and there you go.
So I looked at that and I said, I want to be a SEAL. And so I wrote that that's what I wanted to do. And in my school, I was like, what? These people are all going to be accountants and lawyers. And they were like, you want to join the Navy? What the hell's wrong with you? And I was ostracized. But the big thing that happened as a teenager when I was growing up, I wound up, when I was 13 years old, 8th grade, I had a friend who was... he was Jewish. I was friends with another guy, and this kid had his bar mitzvah, and we got invited to his bar mitzvah. So I went to a bar mitzvah for the first time. I had no idea what I was walking into. And his family celebrating, and he had 2 beautiful 18-year-old cousins, and
they were female, right?
Oh, yeah.
Fucking messing with your brother.
Quite.
You can't be sure these days. Not with you, with some other folks. So,
and me and this other 13-year-old are like, oh my God, these girls thought it was hysterical to mess with these 2 13-year-old Gentiles.
Gawking.
So they brought over. They were drinking, and they brought, hey, we got some whiskey sours here, and they started feeding us drinks. To have a good time. And man, I'll never forget feeling awkward and scared and shy, and but I wanted to impress these girls when I was 13, and they gave me that drink, and I'll never forget the feeling, that first drink going down that I took, and man, that thing warmed me up. It tasted pretty good, and all of a sudden I felt like invincible. First drink, I was like, holy crap, look at this. And I finished that drink, and I was well on my way to getting drunk. And I felt like I could do anything, It was an amazing feeling to feel that drink. I was like, man, this is awesome. I didn't get obliterated, but I was pretty damn drunk.
You knew that there was something different. I
liked it a lot, and I was in pursuit of that. And I think, I've been in pursuit of that feeling my entire life after. And then as I was in high school, as it went further along, I started, it was the first time I ever drank. I never liked the taste. I didn't want anything to do with booze. And after that, I was like, yeah, I'll take an opportunity.
In high school, was it more the booze or was it beer?
It was my entire drinking life is this. Whatever.
Gotcha.
Didn't care.
Right.
What do you got?
Yeah.
Wine, beer, alcohol, never mattered to me. I don't care. whatever you brought, I was going to stay there until it was gone.
Yeah.
If it was a bottle, I'd stay until the bottle's gone. If it was a case is gone.
If it was a keg, you would stay until it's gone.
I'd stay until the keg's gone. Whatever.
Right.
And I didn't get obliterated.
What was the agenda back then? You got to float the keg, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was
float
floating
the
the keg.
keg.
So floating the keg is the keg's in a big bucket with water and ice, and when the keg is done,
the ice melts, fills with water.
Yep, and you float in the keg. It's done.
The keg will sit on the bottom till you drink enough of the beer, and it'll float.
Yeah, float in the keg.
Hell yeah! Well, and I'd either float a keg or I'd pass out.
Yeah.
You know, and I had done that more than one time, blacked out.
But you were fine in school. You were making grades.
Never had a problem.
Good. Yeah.
And
functioning alcoholic.
Functioning
in the making.
And before that incident happened, when I was 11 years old, finished 6th grade, went over to my friend's house, was hanging out with this guy. His parents worked. We'd hang out at his house in his pool, and one day I go over there. And
those 18-year-old girls are over there in bathing suits now.
I wish.
No.
I was looking for that.
I digress.
But he was there, and he had this bag of freaking green moss, and he's like, "Hey, man, I just got this from so-and-so, and man, I got smoked pot." And I looked at him, and I said, "Man, I don't want anything to do with it." And it was like unbelievable. At 13, I was like,
"So drugs is not part of your story."
I said, I will never do that. And the reason I said that is this: that when I grew up, when I was young, my mom smoked, my dad smoked, all my grandparents except my mom's mother smoked. And I remember being trapped in cars with all these adults smoking and feeling sick as a dog.
This is irony because I had the same thing. My dad left very early in life, and my mom raised me, and she smoked all the time.
Yeah,
I would go to bingo with her. It would be in a car. I hated smoke. And then I never tried a cigarette, and I never tried pot.
Me either.
Now, I did the 80s and late 70s, a couple lines of cocaine to stay out in the city partying, but thank God that didn't take hold. But I get the whole smoking thing.
Well, and on a side note from that, when I was about 7, we used to hang out with this kid. He was losing all his teeth. He was a neglected kid. He had 3 older brothers and sisters.
Was he British? Because Brits have bad teeth.
No, he wasn't. He was a neglected kid. His teeth were falling out. He could run the streets wild. He had no supervision. His house was dirty. His mother was always in her pajamas hanging out. She was alcoholic. His father was alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going up in his room, and his brother had on the dresser a bent spoon that was all burned, torches. He had syringes. He had tourniquets.
Wow. What year is this?
This was probably 72.
Was it heroin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they weren't cooking coke until...
Well, when I was in 2nd grade, my other good friend in 2nd grade, his brother died of a heroin overdose. Then this kid, we go over to his house, and he had all this stuff, and they had commercials on TV about what heroin was, and I looked at all that. I said no, and I have never done a single drug ever because all that stuff scared me, and I was like, yeah, absolutely not. I won't do it. So when my friend offered me pot, I said no. Everything, no. But booze, oh yeah.
Right.
I'll drink though. And
what was your algorithms in high school? Was it wait until Friday night, or you start drinking during the week? Or
It was very, very, very controlled, and what I did was I was all about not getting caught, and I've never been caught. I didn't come in here because I got caught. I've never had a DUI.
No, you're a sneaky one. I know.
I'm a sneaky drinker.
You are. Well, you're a sneaky seal. You're good at what you do.
And that was it. The whole thing was don't get caught. I never got caught by the police, and I had friends who drove in. I was right there with them.
Right.
But the cops would come. I was gone. I was out. And I'd sneak through ditches, swim, whatever.
Even back then, you had superior threat assessment skills.
I had threat assessment skills.
And situational awareness.
So I thought I was in control because I controlled how I drank, when I drank, and I would sneak it from my parents. That was the main.
Were you just taking the booze and putting water in to all?
Yeah, booze and water. I knew they weren't really checking.
Oh, gotcha.
A little bit here, a little bit here. My friends and I'd go out. We'd get older people to buy us stuff.
Oh, yeah.
everything. So my fingerprints weren't on it, and you couldn't identify that I did. And I never got caught. So I drank very infrequently. But when I drank anything, and I drank until I passed out. I was a blackout drinker.
Even as a teen?
Teenager.
Wow.
I drank until, I drank to feel good, but I just didn't have an off switch.
I was not a blackout drinker, and sometimes I wish I was because I remember everything I did wrong.
Oh, I remember. I remember most of it, but there's a few that I'm like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my sponsor telling me about alcohol, and I was like, well, how do you tell people you don't drink anymore? He says, man, that's easy. I just tell them I'm allergic to alcohol. When I drink, I wake up in spots.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, Cleveland,
or Stripes,
Disney World,
or Stripes, jail Stripes.
Or Stripes.
That's terrific. I've never heard the spots one. I've heard the Stripes. That's terrific.
But that's how I drank. I have woken up in some extremely odd places, going, where in the hell am I, and what just happened to me?
Got it.
More than once. But I got through high school without any trouble. I turned 18 and went in the Navy the day after I turned 18. I signed up.
And again,
a year before.
So you were young. So it was August. So it was August after you graduated.
I went in August 3rd, the day after my birthday.
Were you in delayed entry program? Or?
I was. I joined in January. As a matter of fact, I went to take my ASVAB test in the morning. I was driving to take the ASVAB test. They were putting on the radio that John Lennon had been shot.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. But I did everything I needed to do to go to the teams, and the recruiter.
The trivia, outside of what hotel did he get shot?
He got shot outside the Dakota.
You got it. And what is inside of Dakota as far as the vegetation?
There's gardens in the courtyard.
Yes, and who sang a song about the gardens?
Oh, I don't know.
Elton John, Empty Garden.
Empty Garden, yeah. Yeah, it's a big courtyard in the Dakota.
Do you know this, that John Lennon's last live performance was with Elton John at Madison Square Garden? And you know what the song was?
No.
Whatever Gets You Through the Night. It was an impromptu. He showed up and they sang it together.
Wow.
Okay, I digress. Go ahead.
I forget where I was, but
we were talking about John Lennon got shot.
Yeah,
and you knew where you were.
So that I had signed up for the Navy. Then went in August, and my whole thing was to be a SEAL, and there was no delayed entry. There was none of that.
Did they have? There was no pipeline, then you had a screen before it, or at your first command.
And when I took the ASVAB test, my recruiter saw my scores. He's like, "You can do anything you want in the Navy," and his job was to put me in the nuke program.
Yes,
and he was like, "You
know why they do that? I found out
because
later on.
They get."
Well, they do, but the attrition is so horrible. They got to feed the monster because it's so hard.
Yeah. So he said, "No, your scores are so high. You have to be a nuke. You have to go in and be a nuke." I said, "I don't have to do anything. I'm going in to be in the SEAL teams."
Yeah.
And I said, "And if you don't put me in the SEAL teams,
you're not
I'm
going
right over to that recruiter over there, and I'm going to go to Special Forces, or I'll go to Marine Recon."
Yeah, Recon, right.
And he said, "All right." He goes, "You got it." So he said, "What do you want your rate to be?" And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" You know. He said, "What do you want your job to be? You got to go to school first."
GM, BM, what was it?
And so I said, "Oh man, all right." So I said, "Give me that book," and I looked through it, and there's corpsmen, and I looked at all the source ratings, and they were all terrible except gunners, mate. Guns, I'll fix guns. That's it. So I picked the longest damn school you can go to before you go to
missiles.
I was a gunners make guns because I wanted to take care of small arms.
Yeah.
So they wanted me to go
much
missiles
of the test.
Attack. Yep. But I was doing it to be a team guy. So
it's interesting when they're talking about source ratings. They're ratings that play into the SEAL career.
Right.
But before SO, SEAL operator was a rating.
Yes.
We were able to pick what ratings to go to make the rate the quickest.
Yes.
Because I was an OS first. I got to after EOD school. I said, OS test, some of it's classified. Go do something that is non-classified. GM, guns.
Right.
Did that, hit a ceiling with that, and the teams are like, go to BM. It's open from E6 to E9. It's non-classified. Go take that test. So it was a different path back in those days.
To go higher. And I wish I had switched over to boatswain's mate, and I didn't listen, or I didn't watched the example that was set for me. I said, I can do it as a gunner's mate. And it took me forever to make chief.
Did you ever do the ones like they send you over the dam neck or up to gunner's mate school up in Great Lakes?
My fourth time going up for chief, I said, all right, I'm going to do something about this.
They send you to Great Lakes?
Artie Fusco and I set up our own trip to Great Lakes. I set the whole thing up myself.
Yeah.
And we drove up to Great Lakes and studied for a week with the gunner's mates up there. Took parachutes and went and got Guy Mefford, who was he was the recruiter up at the pool. And we went up to Wisconsin to a Army base. Got helicopters and we were free falling for like 2-3 days in the freezing cold. We were just jumping.
It's always interesting when a SEAL shows up to a fleet school because you show up, the instructors don't know what to do with you. The students are looking at you like you have 3 eyes.
Yep.
I mean, it's very.
And you just stay low key and you get through it, and they help us out. But when I was in boot camp and I'm trying to get to the teams, I was
Did you screen in boot camp?
I was so front sight focused that I got straight to the teams. I didn't drink a lot. I didn't do anything.
All right, so I had spoke to Evan about this, and the difference in going to the teams now and then is like, so you show up to Buds and it's like, when's the next class starting? Shave your head, you're in a class. There wasn't this long pre-training selection. It was, you got your orders, you get in there, and you know what, you're classing up. And we're going to see what happens. You pass the PT test, but you're going to class up, shave your head, and you're off you go.
Well, for me in boot camp, we had to go take that test, and there was 60 guys in boot camp when I was there. And I am the smallest cat, but every night in boot camp, people go to bed. I'd get up and go in the head, and I would do push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups. I went in the bathroom,
you know what I did?
did pull-ups all night long.
You know what I did? Because I know when I got to my command, I wanted to screen for dive school. I wound up going to EOD assistant, then the teams. But I used to purposely get in trouble in boot camp because you would have to go to you would have a drill hall, and they would just torture you for an hour or so and get the extra PT at night.
I followed the rules. I was quiet. I just did what I was supposed to do. But I PT'd every night, and about 10 of us from my company went over to take the test. And I was obviously the smallest guy from that group. We went over there, and they had you do the push-ups, the pull-ups. I was worried about passing.
Do you remember who was a screener in boot camp?
Yeah,
who was it?
Jim Carver, who was a
Buckethead?
SEAL Team
Oh
2.
my God! I had Buckethead Jim Carver. His nickname was Buckethead.
And
he was a senior enlisted advisor in Scotland for my second deployment over there.
And Herbie Haskins.
I don't know Haskins, but I know Buckethead.
Evan knows who.
I'm going to tell
Haskins
you a funny ass story with Carver. All right, this is going to digress. So, remember the Iron Forger in Norway and stuff like that. So we used to have to go clear the remember the Amtraks the Marines used to have?
Oh yeah,
right. So they were these big,
a tank without a gun on top.
Exactly, that were
with back doors.
that they sunk a lot. So we would have to go do these hydro recons in the fjords in Norway, and the fjords fall off very quickly. So your soundings, you didn't have to go out too far, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, it would have to clear like 3 lanes, and it was so the lanes were 25 yards, right? So it would be 75 yards. So it would be me, 2 other guys, forward deployed to do these hydro recons because we did the cartography charts, right? And it was all dry suit stuff, right?
Yeah.
It was fucking freezing, dude.
Oh yeah.
So it was me, John Sullivan, and Lou Hauk was going. Sully was the enlisted guy. Hauk went, and so we would get to go like 10 days before the main element got there, right? Buckethead was our guy.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready to do my stuff. Hauk and Sullivan set up the lanes, right?
Yep.
You know, for the soundings, moving across with the tide. So I got my woolly pulley on. I got my dry suit on, and somebody's got to zip your dry suit up from the fucking back. I'm like, I'm good to go. Senior Chief Carver, am I good to go? Yeah. He didn't fucking zip my drive suit. I get in the water. It fucking fills up. I am fucking sinking.
You're in a bag
I am sinking in a bag with my woolly pulley. They're like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, fuck no, I'm not okay. I'm fucking drowning, dude.
Yeah.
You know, I had a UDT on. I pull a thing. It inflated. I got back to shore. I'm like,
Because from your feet to your neck,
because the middle of your back is where the zipper starts. It all went in there. I looked like I had elephantitis when I came out of the water. So they rushed me into. There was a school right there. They rushed me into the school. They take all my shit off. I'm fucking freezing my ass off. Norway fjords are freezing in the wintertime. It was brutal. So those guys had
30-degree water.
Yeah. So we change out. I got Sully dressed, make sure I zipped his shit up, and he did that iteration. But that's my Buckethead story. Sorry, Senior Chief, I love you, man, but that's what you did. Okay, go ahead.
So we got to go take the test with Jim Carver. There's about 50 guys there. At the end, there's 2 of us to do the run. And
in Boondockers.
In Boondockers.
And Dunga Jams.
And Dunga Jams. And out we go. Now,
if you don't know what Boondockers are, look them up on Google.
These huge black steel-toe boots
with 2 eyelids.
Oh yeah,
they were terrible.
They were awful. So we went on this run. The only thing I hadn't been training on was running, and I was worried. So this guy took off ahead of me, and I just said,
"What was it? 8.5 minutes you had to make, right?
7.5.
7.5 for SEALs, 8.5 for diver and EOD. Sorry."
So off we went, and we came in, and I got to the end. I was dying. Carver brings us to the office.
What month was it?
Oh, it was August.
Oh, so it wasn't
hotter than hell.
So it wasn't breathing in January.
No, it was August. So we get in there, we go in the room, and he says, "All right," to the one kid, he goes, "How many times you been here?" And the guy goes, "This is my 4th time here." And he goes, "All right, you passed, with 7 minutes and 20 seconds or something." And he looks at me and goes, "How many times you been here?"
Once.
I go, "This is my 1st time." "What? Nobody does it first time. Damn it." 7 minutes and 28 seconds. So I made it by 2 seconds.
Don't matter if it's 6 minutes or 7 minutes and 28 seconds.
And he was so pissed off. He goes, nobody makes it their first time. And he gives me that letter that went in the big page went in the front of your service record.
Yeah.
So they couldn't give you orders to go anywhere else.
Right.
So I graduated boot camp. I went to A school. I did fine in A school. I didn't get out of control. But every once in a while I'd go out drinking. And I couldn't even tell you. I knew I went out. I couldn't tell you how I got back more than one time. And but I was keeping my nose clean. And we went back to Great Lakes after A school. And I had to go through 2 months of just hanging out at the pool, waiting
to class up. Yeah.
So Herbie Haskins and Jim Carter put us through training to go to Buds. And it was harder than any single thing I ever did in Buds. Harder than that. It was miserable. It was cold. It sucked. And I had a good time because I was with a group of guys. 4 of us made it to the team. 5 of us made it.
Who were the other guys you did?
So some of the guys I was there with was Don Mann.
I know Don.
Don was coming back in. He was Navet coming back.
Yeah, Don Mann was a corpsman.
Yep.
Then a warrant officer.
Yep.
Right. He was at 2 with us and doing winter warfare. So I know.
Yep. But
Don, if you're out there listening,
he was at Dev. Yeah. He went to Dev Group forever. He was still Team 1, and then he went to Dev Group.
Point too.
I'm sure. Don's done all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Guy named Keith Bowman.
I don't know Bowman.
Bowman's a retired senior chief. He was at Dam Neck forever. Guy named Mark Schlenk, who was my swim buddy all the way through Buds and Good Mug, SEAL Team 1 guy. A guy named Juan Medina, Gold Gloves boxer from New York City, who wound up being in my boat crew and Evan's boat crew in Hell Room.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Juan filled out in pool comp and then came back and got through the teams.
Did he get rolled out in training and get put back in, or did he get rolled back?
They brought him back in. He was such a stud, but he just couldn't tread water with the tanks on. And
so let me interrupt you 1 second. So, and I Evan and Doug were in the same boat crew at Buds.
Yes.
So if you didn't get that, he just said it, and I should have talked about it with the other podcast that we're going to have Doug in that was in the same boat crew as Evan. So go ahead.
Anyway, so we did pre-training there. It beat our ass. Got to go home for like a few weeks and then show up in California to start up in Buds. And I was a summer class, so it was easy.
They just torture you longer. There's no easier. It all evens out. So don't let anybody bullshit you.
It was an easy summer class. Showed up in California, and I was just going to get through buds. Got there, and these guys who I've been through training with had already been there. And they picked me up from the airport, and I'll never forget getting off the plane in California. I'd never been to California before, and there is this gorgeous woman waiting for somebody else getting off the plane. Freaking tiny little tan. She's wearing shorts that were stitched up her each side, both sides, like with laces, and the gap in her shorts on each side was like 4-inch gap on each side. She's huge breasts.
She's well endowed.
Tank top, good. And I'm just like, man, this California is awesome. I just got off the plane.
Was she waiting for a team guy?
Probably. Who knows? I thought, wow, this is fantastic. So we go over to Bud's, and
you saw the Coronado Bridge for the first time.
Saw the Coronado Bridge for the first time. Get over to, and we were in the Bud's barracks was over there. The barracks was full. All my class was pretty much there.
The Bud's barracks probably was on the wet side. The original.
It was right on the water.
And then
3-story building.
Then they moved you over. Did you have?
There was no such thing as moving you over. That was the only building.
When I got there, it was on the amphib side. Till you got all checked in and your greens and all of that stuff, and then they moved you over.
The barracks was right behind the compound, right on the beach, and there was a little lounge over to one side. So the barracks was so full, there was no room for us. So in the lounge, they had to put together bunk beds and just slide us in between the Coke machines and the telephone and everything else. And that's where I lived when I started, because the class was so big. We were all living out there, and we went through pre-training. And I'll never forget being in pre-training. Tiny little guy in the back of the thing, and everybody's there, big strapping dudes, and we had Marine recon guys, and we had all kinds of people. Collegiate athletes, and everything. You'll never make it. You'll never make it. And I'm in the last row. I go, okay, we'll see. And as we went through training, man, our class just shrunk, and I went from the back row, and I was in the back row when I graduated, but all the middle rows were gone. All the officers were lined up in front of us, huge group up there, and I met this college swimmer, Naval Academy swimmer, who's a mean guy, Evan Thompson, when I wound up being in his boat crew with another guy, another Ensign Hinckley was our boat crew leader. Evan was in the back of the boat, and he was the tallest guy in our boat crew. And I was in front of him. I was the bow man on the starboard side. Mm-hmm. And between us was a guy named Fauzi Al-Ghamdi, who was a Saudi Arabian I am a chief petty officer. I am a chief. And I'm an
Did they push him through?
So Fauzi was there, and there were two other...
Because they pushed some guys through my class.
There were two other Saudis in that class. Never saw them again after like 2 weeks. But Fauzi was in our boat crew, and we had to carry that boat around, and Fauzi's head was almost never under the boat. And
you guys fuck with him?
On the other side, across from Fauzi, was Juan Medina.
Did you tell him that Allah would not like this, Fauzi, for not trying your best?
I didn't say much to him. But Juan Medina's head was not touching the boat. But Juan Medina, Golden Gloves boxer from New York, went through all of Hell Week with his hands above his head, carrying that boat with his shoulders the whole way.
So his head was like this?
His head couldn't touch the boat.
Oh.
So he carried
I got you.
arms.
I got you.
But I was in the Smurf.
So he did extended arm carry the whole time
for 5 days. He was a brutal dude. They called him the Junkyard Dog. He was a Gold Glove boxer.
And that was the second time he'd been through.
No, this is his first class.
This is when he's going to get rolled.
And he was a tough mug. And Bob Donegan was one of the big, meaty instructors. Gary Jackson was our
Ray
class
out there
proctor. Then? Ray showed up later.
Yeah.
Ray showed up later.
You heard all the stories.
And Senior Chief Hopkins, he was that deadly dude. And these guys would brutalize you. But Donegan would be out there PTing. Donegan was a arm wrestling champion. Mm-hmm. Big guy. And he'd be up there PTing, and he'd get up every morning and go, it's too dark out here. I can't see what It must say push-ups. So all we did was push-ups all morning for PT. Where's the junkyard dog? Get the junkyard dog up here. We're going to do push-ups till the junkyard dog gets tired. Everybody, flying, stop, we're dying. Well, we had to go to the pool and do our screening test, and in the water, I was very confident. I swam.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about when you grew up in New Jersey. Did you go to the beach a lot?
All the time.
So you were comfortable in water.
My parents
and the Northeast water is chilly.
I was used to cold, and I was used
I
was used to swimming, and my father was a big swimmer.
Good.
And he had us swimming all the time. On Sundays, when my father was home from work, we went to church, and then we went to the YMCA pool and we swam. When I was 7, I could do 25 yards underwater.
Mm-hmm.
I could swim, so I had no problem.
How was the drinking when you got the training? Did you just stop it? Or were you going to Gator Gardens on Friday nights?
I was telling
sucking up to the instructors at McPee's.
Well, I was 18 years old, so I couldn't drink out in town.
Right.
I had to tell
you could drink on base, though.
I did,
okay.
and not that I couldn't get my hands on booze,
right.
because I did, but I was towing the line to get through buds. So we went through that, and they were brutalizing people, and people telling me, you'll never make it. And I was like, hell yeah, I will.
Like, fuck you, I'm going to make it.
So the big guy was Terry Hopkins, Senior Chief Hopkins, was drowning people.
First phase.
Oh, first
during
phase.
life-saving?
Drowned, life-saving, killing people. And he was a heavy guy. And help me, I'm drowning. And people swim out to get him, the biggest guys in our class. He'd get them, take them under. So they're lined up on the pool deck, and it's my turn to go, and I was a lifeguard.
So the evolution of Buds is everything but life-saving.
Oh, yeah. And I'm watching how he's doing this, and I go, I got to beat Terry Hopkins. So I had to go swim out to Terry Hopkins, dive under, come up behind him, come up his body, and if you let go of his body or did anything wrong in the whole life-saving procedure, you would get killed. Well, I was a lifeguard when I was a kid.
So you knew it.
I knew what to do. So I go under, I turn him around, I come up his body, and when I came up to the top, I go, I got him.
Cross
so
chest?
I came up, I did a chin tilt, I pulled his head back to me, I go cross chest, and I can't get all the way across his chest.
You're fucking choking him out?
Nope. I got right into his armpit, and I grabbed all the hair in his armpit, and I went, hurrah! And Terry Hopkins went, and he didn't say a word. And I swam.
You take him to the bottom?
I just swam him to the side of the pool, and it was a long way. I get Terry Hopkins to the side of the pool.
I said, get the fuck out of the water.
And I grab him, and I pull him up. I put his hand on the side, and I go, I'm about to die right now. So I take a big breath. And I put his other hand on the side of the pool, and Terry Hopkins looks at me, and his face is like this. He's like, he just goes, good job. And he just swam away after he drowned all these big guys in my class. I thought,
great.
Shit, man, maybe I can make it through this thing. And
well, you find out later the instructors like that. When you talk to them when you're done in third phase, whenever you're getting close to be done, you get the teams. That's what they want to see. They want to see some moxie and confidence.
And that's what they were after. And when we were doing the pool confidence thing, I'll never forget this, that this guy who was pushing me around in the first couple weeks of Buds, you'll never make it.
Who was it?
I have no idea what his
Instructor
name is.
douchebag.
No, he was a kid. He was in my class.
Oh, he was a kid?
Yeah, you'll never make it. You'll never make it.
I hope he didn't make it.
Well, they we had to do the swimming with your hands and feet tied behind you. That was the last evolution.
Last evolution of the first phase?
He's in drown proofing. In drown proofing.
Yeah.
And you had to swim down, swim back, and then dive to the bottom of the pool, get your face mask with your teeth, and then you could come up and they'd untie it. So this kid comes...
If you haven't seen drown proofing, look it up, Google it. It's an interesting evolution. Your feet are tied and your hands are tied behind your back.
So he swims all the way down, comes all the way back.
You have to swim 50 meters.
50 meters.
Yeah, with your hands tied.
He's coming back. He's in trouble. He starts doing the bobbing. And you got bob 10 times. You got to go all the way to the bottom and come back.
And what happens when you tense your body up?
And
you sink like a fucking rock.
So he's coming up. He's bobbing. He comes to the surface. Goes, I'm dying. And Don again standing on the side. No, you're not. And then he goes down to the bottom. He comes up. He goes, I'm dying. Shut up. The guy goes down again. He comes up. And he goes, I'm dead. He went down to the bottom and he laid on the bottom and died.
Did he really die?
And
he really died in training?
And then he tried to swim over to the side, put his chin on the side.
But they pushed
and
him,
they had a pole, and they just pushed him back out.
So that pole, it looks like the you see these old plays when people get yanked off the stage. There's a big hook on it. That was the hook.
And they pushed him out. He died on the bottom. And then he goes, "Junkyard dog, go down and get him." Juan Medina had swim down, bring him back. That guy was as blue as the shirt I'm wearing. And I remember sitting in the bleachers going, "Holy crap, these people are not playing." They pulled him out and put him on the pool deck and started doing CPR on him. They go, "Everybody get in the bleachers." So you had to sit in these bleachers where they'd spray you with water.
It was the old pool over there.
So we're sitting in the bleachers. We're freezing because it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. It was cold. And we're sitting there shivering, and they are doing CPR on this guy right in front of us. And Senior Chief Hopkins comes out and stands in front of him and goes, "Now this is, for you guys, you're learning how to survive in this class." And they're doing CPR. And the ambulance pulls up at the pool. The doctor comes running across the pool deck and gets on him. He's doing CPR. And they're working on this guy, and Terry Hopkins is lecturing us on why we need to learn how to drown proof and what this training is all about. In the middle of his lecture, he stops. He turns around and he goes, Get him out of here. Get that guy. Now they are doing CPR on a dead guy. And he goes, "Get him out of here. Get him away from these men." And they drag this guy's carcass off to the side. And I'm sitting in those bleachers going, these guys don't care at all. Like, we could die here, and they'll let you die. And I was like, all right, that's what I'm here to do as I'm going through the rest of Bud. So I'm telling you about this to tell you, like, this is the severity of what Bud's training was.
It is.
And I handled it well, but when I got a chance to go drink, got liquored up. And the very last time I really got a chance to party hard, third phase of Buds, we're out on the island.
Yeah, so now SEAL training.
The guy lived.
What's
What?
that?
He didn't die.
He did not die, by
He
the
did
way.
die. Evan's
They
sitting in
saved
on
him.
this.
And
Hi,
he
Evan.
quit.
So,
And I remember passing him in the compound when he quit. I was walking out. He's got all his stuff. He's leaving. He's going to tell me I'm going to quit. And I didn't say a word to him. I walked
humility.
right up to him. No, walked right up to him and right past him as he was leaving. Looked him right in the eye, and he was just looking at the ground. And he never came back.
So they changed some things around in SEAL training. First phase used to be, just torture phase, Hell Week. Second phase used to be
Diving.
No, diving used to be third.
No, not when we went.
Oh, so they changed it. They had
changed
it
it for you.
They had it better when you had it because they changed it back. Because diving's second phase now.
Diving's second phase.
And they figured there was a lot of people besides Hell Week, or if you were at the island in second phase, safety violations, but most people wash out because of diving.
Yeah.
So now they do first phase, torture phase, Hell Week, second phase, diving. So they haven't all this money invested in you, and they get you out in the second phase.
Yep.
Which I don't know why they changed it, but.
Well, we wound up going through.
Here's another thing. And I talked to Evan about this. Is talking to the newer guys in SEALs and Recovery and some younger guys we help mentor in the team, just getting their orders and stuff. Is when somebody quit or got kicked out of Buds, you never saw them.
No.
They were gone in a matter of minutes over to 32nd Street.
Yeah.
Now they stay around and they help the instructors and stuff.
No.
And back then they just wanted that person away from guys that potentially could make it.
Literally, we came back from the pool. We went and did another evolution that day, and we were going back to the barracks that day.
He was gone.
An hour later,
Yeah.
when I passed him, and he had his stuff, and he was leaving the compound.
And
he was walking out with his kit bag, and he was gone. And everybody that you were at Buds with disappeared. And
what did you used to sing when a guy rang the bell? Happy Trails. They don't do any of that anymore. Guys up there fucking crying, ringing the bell, question life, and here's 60 dudes singing Happy Trails to you.
Yeah,
I mean it wasn't messing around.
No. Well, we went through Hell Week. It was a big class, and I saw some of the toughest mugs I ever saw. I was in the Smurf crew with Evan. We were the smallest boat crew, and we won everything.
The small ones usually do.
We crushed it. And they didn't expect us to crush it at all, and especially paddling, we crushed it. But we had to do this thing called we had to do diving, in the mud flats.
I've heard this.
They
If
turned
you
the-
listen to our second podcast, Evan talked about his experience in diving and breaking his
They
neck.
turned our boats over and put them in what was a creek. It was now a big muddy bog. And then later that night, it filled back up into a creek. It was from the washout from Tijuana. And we had to do deep dives into this mud pit. And we run down the beach, bounce off the bottom of this boat, jump up in the air and do these dives to entertain the instructors and splat in the mud. So from my boat crew, Evan Thompson runs and does this dive, and he jumps up. He gets so much height, and he puts his hands to his side. And he goes head first into the mud to about his middle of his belly, boom, stuck in the mud.
It was a mud dart.
And his legs, when he did that, his legs just kept going over. And we were standing on the side, tired, disillusioned, groggy, and I watch Evan flip over. And his head is stuck in the mud. And myself and a couple other guys from our boat crew, we just jumped in that mud right away and had to wade out in hip-deep mud to get to Evan, who was upside down, not breathing for like a minute or two. And we grab Evan's body, we stand him back up, and we are trying. We can't get him out of the mud. And we are working. We got to start filling the hole with what little water there is to get. Evan was under that mud for like 2 minutes. We pull that guy out, and this is Tuesday of Hell Week. And Evan just had this look on his face of pain. And he didn't say much anyway in the boat. He never did. And he's just gritting his teeth. It's like, I'm all right. And we went through the rest of Hell Week. And Evan was quiet. He paddled. He carried that boat the whole time and didn't say much. And he was gritting his teeth through all of Hell Week. We finish Hell Week, first boat crew to finish. And we secure our boat. We go down to the beach and watch everybody else getting dunked in the mud pits.
Yeah.
We didn't have to. We were in dry clothes, man, standing there because we won Hell Week. They pulled them out. And Evan went and checked in with the doc, and I didn't see Evan again. Evan broke his neck on the second day of Hell Week, third day of Hell Week. And that guy finished Hell Week before he left. And I thought, man, that's a hard son of a bitch. And I didn't see Evan again until years later in the teams. And he was a senior officer there. And then Evan wound up meeting my son down in New Orleans. Who was a SEAL at SDV team. And my son said, man, he's a tough guy. I said, yeah, that's Evan Thompson.
Hell Week with a broken neck.
But I share some of that just to say, what we went through. But Bud's was great. I wound up going to the island, and we did well, and they wound up taking us to a bar on the island. The instructors did.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know that existed.
You didn't know there was a bar on the island.
I did not know this.
The instructors took our whole class
We're talking about San Clemente Island.
to a bar on San Clemente
where
Island.
nobody could hear you scream.
And they fed us drinks, and we played the piano. We frickin' sang and drank and frickin' had a great time. I thought, holy crap, this is something. Graduated from Bud's and said goodbye to my class. We graduated in December.
What class number?
I was in class 120.
120.
I went home for a month, and then we all met back up at Fort Benning in January of
Get on the cables.
1983.
Mustard on the cables for jump school.
And we did. They packed 3 days of training into 3 weeks at the Army Airborne School. And all we did was PT like madmen, and it was freezing cold. It was so cold, the base got shut down for ice, and none of the instructors could come in. Whoever was there. And they took us out and just had us doing PLFs on frozen sawdust in the pits for a day, just jumping on the front.
You had a good memory, dude.
We were doing PLFs. But all I remember is every night we'd all get cabs and go out in town. And I couldn't tell you what I did in town because that's when I started drinking. Every night I'd go out and drink, and I'd wake up 4 o'clock the next morning and just do Army Airborne training all day. Finish that, and then I got orders to UDT 21 on the East Coast. And I wanted to go to SEAL Team 2, something awful. I wanted to go to SEAL Team. I didn't want to go to underwater demolition team, and I was like, damn it, I got to go to underwater.
What did your pipeline look like for STT and getting your bird and everything else?
So these are great questions. STT did not exist.
Gotcha.
It was called SBI at SEAL Team 2.
That's right. That's right.
And at UDT, there was no SBI, but it was you got pre-deployment training. You had 6 months of training, and then they'd give you your bird. Well, I showed up. I was me and Randy Thurston were the two enlisted guys from our class, and Greg Belanger was an officer who showed up. I never saw Randy or Greg again at UDT 21. I wound up patching boats and hanging out in February, and the whole command was on command
Were
deployment.
they Avons or Zodiacs? What do you have back then?
They were Z-Birds.
Z-Birds, the one with the big sponsons?
The big, huge
oh my God.
Z-Birds.
They're like
I was
cartoonish.
patching them.
Oh, Lord, I forgot about those. There was a couple left.
So the whole command was on command deployment to Puerto Rico. And I mean the entire command. There was
Yeah.
about 15 people that were there at the command. When I showed up in my dress blues with my cab dropped me off, I had my dress blues and my sea bag.
They said go get a bottom sample?
Bare-chested. And,
you had your lead wings on, right?
I did have lead wings.
Yeah.
I had lead wings.
So lead wings is 10
Five
jump chump.
from the Army.
5 jump chump, and then you get your 10 in the teams, and then you get your gold wings.
And I had 2 stripes on my arm. I was an E2.
Yes.
I showed up at...
Well, you weren't a striker at least. At least you had a rating.
I was a gunner's mate when I showed up at Bud's. You could do the BMR and get E3. I didn't care. All I cared about was getting through Bud's, so I didn't pick up E3.
Yeah. BMR is basic military requirements to
Yes.
get to E3.
So I showed up at the command, and there's a second class sitting on the quarterdeck. He goes, man, I got this big package of orders. Hey, I'm here. I'm checking in on my team. And the 2 guys I lived with, they were at SEAL Team 2, both guys, and I'm at UDT. And I show up at the command, and UDT was this broken down, like wooden building across the street from where the chow hole is on Little Creek.
Yeah.
There's a fire station there.
Yeah.
But and there was barracks. It was just a broken down old World War II building. I walk in there. I go, hey, I'm here. Seaman Prentice McQuarrie reporting. The guy goes, man, command's on command deployment. Give me this. He signs my orders. He puts it in the logbook. He goes, they're not coming back for 3 weeks. Go do whatever you want. Come back in 3 weeks. I'm a 19-year-old E-2. No car, nothing. All right, I'll see you later. So I went and hang out and drank till they got back.
Where was your drinking spot at the beach?
Well, I couldn't go to drinking spots
you had to drink
I was
on base.
too young. So I had to get stuff on base.
Yes.
I had to buy booze on base and take it home.
Got you.
My drinking spot was at home.
Got you.
Because I was too young to get in anymore.
That's right.
So the command came back from command deployment, and they said, everybody up into the classroom. They all went up in the classroom. They go, hey, Navy says we got to do urinalysis. Because when I was in boot camp, they crashed a F-14 on the deck of a aircraft carrier. It burned, and everybody was too drunk to put the fire out. So they started doing urinalysis. So they said, everybody's got to go downstairs and pee in a bottle. So they handed out the whole command bottles. These people I've never seen in my life. They don't know who I am. I don't know who they are. We all go down in this one big head, and everybody's going. Everybody from chiefs and senior chiefs down to whoever's like, hey, who hasn't done anything? Who's got? And there's people just piss for me. So they go, you smoke dope? And I go, no. And they go, here, fill this bottle. So I'm in the bathroom filling bottles for half the command. Then I got to hang out in the bathroom for the next half a day so I could pee enough to get a urinalysis. And it was a drug team.
It was?
Oh, drugs
I never
were
saw a
prevalent.
lot of it, too. I heard some rumors of it. They had problems in the 90s with some stuff, but I never witnessed it myself.
But people smoked dope back then, and that was, and all kinds of people did it. So you're
I'm
just
not
like,
judging them. It's culture,
and I never did. So I took the urinalysis for a lot of people. But then they said, hey, you're going to be in VIP platoon. So these guys had just shown up. They had done all their pre-deployment training. They had been on Kindle Liberty, which is a big exercise. They'd been in Panama and Puerto Rico and everywhere else. And I'm this new guy. platoon says, "All right, you're in the platoon now." So the first day I'm in the platoon, they go, "Tomorrow we're diving, and you're on the dive." I hadn't been issued
Open circuit,
rubber.
closed circuit. What were we doing?
Draeger. I was the first class. My class in Buds was the very first class to dive Draeger.
Got it.
So I knew how to dive Draeger. They were all Emerson qualified. They were learning how to dive Draeger.
Yeah.
I was the only guy who had to have Draeger. So these we're going to dive. I hadn't been issued rubber. All I'd been issued is camis and sweatsuit, and I'd been issued fins and a mask and a couple of things, a big old sleeping bag and an Alice pack. Here you go, and a bunch of just crap. My H gear was cotton Vietnam H gear. I didn't even have the nylon stuff. I had the old cotton stuff. Here you go.
Yeah, it had the two straps in the back too.
Yeah, like the two straps in the back.
Yeah, that was actually better for load bearing.
That's what I had. I still have it to this day.
Yeah, it's much better than that.
And that's what they issued me. And the pistol I got issued when I was in that platoon was a snub nose 38 5-cylinder revolver. So it was a tiny little police special with 5, not 6 cylinders.
Speed loaders
5
at least?
Speed loader. And the other pistols that we had, turns out,
Berettas? What?
No, revolvers, 38s, had 4 serial numbers on them.
Oh my God! And they're collector's items now.
When I was in Lebanon, some Marine looked at one of our guys who had one of those pistols. He goes, "Can I see that pistol?" And he goes, "Yeah." Hands him the pistol. Marine goes, "Oh my God, this says 4. Do you know how old this pistol is?" We go, "No. This pistol was built in like 1938. We're carrying these pistols."
Yeah. Well, when I got to 2, there were still crossbows in the arsenal.
There was crossbows.
When I went over to Scotland, stoners were still in the.
There was stoners at SEAL Team 2 when
Wow.
I got there. So I'm hanging out like, and this is all. So we had to go on a dive. I had to go on my first dive. I had to borrow my chief's rubber.
Where'd you go, Little Creek Cove? Or
no.
Where'd you guys go?
These draggers, and they took us out into the middle of Hampton Roads. Across from where all the ships are, they put merchant vessels at anchor out there.
Okay.
And we had to dive on these merchant vessels at
so
anchor. It is easy to hit a ship.
You're on the anchor. The ship's swinging around. I'm a combat swimmer guru, dude. That's the hardest
Genius.
target. Hard.
So we're diving on these ships that are swinging at anchor, and we're swimming along. Now I've got all this brand new rubber. I've never weight tested anything. They just hand me this big weight belt, and I'm swimming with my dive buddy. And I had my Chief's fins. I hadn't even gotten fins yet. I had to wear my Chief's fins, his rubber, and I'm out there diving with this guy. As soon as we roll in the water that night, we roll off the boat in the water, one fin gone. So I'm one fin, and we're on buddy line, and we're swimming, and I'm kicking like hell with one fin, and here we go. And we're diving along, and this guy's driving, and he's not really looking at the attack board. And these are old attack boards that you guys have never seen. It was a piece of plywood with a Seiko watch strapped to it.
Analog.
A little wrist compass strapped to it, and this big depth gauge like this that had the big nuclear symbol on it. It was because the glow in the dark was radiological. You couldn't lose that because if you lost that compass, it was
a controlled item.
Controlled item. So we're swimming along, and all of a sudden, boom! We hit the mud, and I'm like, "What the hell?" And the guy's like, "Ugh." I look at the depth gauge. We're at 90 feet in Hampton Roads.
That's an excursion.
You think?
That's a channel out there.
So we go back up and we start swimming.
So
we go again and hit the mud the second time and go back
let me
up.
just explain. So you're diving straight O2, and O2 under pressure has some bad effects on your body. So
you are not allowed to go below 50
you
feet.
You need
ever.
waivers to go deeper for any point period of time.
We've been to 90
you're
feet
bouncing around at 90 feet
twice. And we hit the side of the ship, and I've got the.
So you guys had to be diving with no buoys.
No buoys, nothing. And so I have the mine on my back. I take it off.
Limpet mine.
I put the mine on the ship.
You finally found the ship?
We found
ship? Was it the
we
right
hit
ship?
It, and we don't know. We didn't care. We found the ship. We put a mine on it. We put the mine on the ship, and as I'm putting it on, my other fin falls off. I am with no fins, and I am blowing up my
Secumar.
no such thing.
What were you using?
Secumars did not exist. They were Mark IV life jackets. They were big green life jackets with 4 CO2 cartooges in them.
You had a Mark IV over your Dragger?
Yes.
How in the fuck did you dive with that?
It was down the sides. It was down the sides. It was.
What was the horse collar? I thought that was Mark IV.
Well, it was up around your neck and down the sides. It was olive drab.
Okay.
And it rolled up on your sides, and then you strapped it around your waist.
Okay, yes.
So you could wear it. And it had an oral inflation tube, and this thing was so old, the oral inflation tube wouldn't screw down. I thought, I don't need that. Well, once my second fin fell off, I sure as hell needed it.
There's a reason in Buds where they make sure that your UGT vests work. Yeah. Obviously, that message didn't carry on to the teams with your Mark IV.
So I'm inflating my Dragger and staying on the surface. We got back from that dive. Guys lost the nuclear DAC board, not us. My buddy and I held on to ours. But I had lost 2 fins on my first dive. I felt like such an idiot. And after that, I was completely prepared for every dive, every evolution I ever did. I worked overtime.
Well, nobody cared about your fins. That guy lost the compass, the depth gauge.
Yeah, and that totally
Did you have to do a command dive to go find the depth gauge?
Well, we were gonna, but they said, you guys, you better go out and find it. So they had to drive over all around Hampton, and somehow
they found it?
It washed up on a beach, and they found it.
Oh, my God, dude.
And they were lucky as hell. So that was, at the time, our platoon officers were going out testing all the new boats, and they brought in Petzls and Avons and Zodiacs, and they were testing everything for the command, and the brand new boat was Zodiac.
Yeah, 470?
So it was Avon. Avon was the brand new boat. These huge boats that were so nice compared to the pieces of crap we'd been running. And we took those, and we went on we went down to Camp Lejeune and did blue water workups with the Marines. Yeah. And we had to do beach recons down there.
Yep.
Did some hooch takedowns, learned how to take down buildings. And then went to Naval Gunfire Support School. And my chief came in and said, hey, here. And I go, what's this? He goes, you're an E3 now. So get new stripes on your uniform. And off we went. And in May, we deployed to Lebanon.
Yes.
The platoon that was over there had been sitting there. The platoon before that had evacuated Palestine. Israel had gone north of the border and chased the Palestinians up to Beirut, chased them to the seaport, and the platoon before us had to evacuate with LCUs. They had LCU was landing craft. They brought in Navy landing craft and loaded all the Palestinians onto them, took them out to the ships, and took them out of Lebanon because the Israeli army had come forward with tanks and guns. They went to a refugee camp of about 3,000 people and walked through the tents and shot like 3,000 people, murdered them. And then they made this big mass graveyard on the north side of the airport by a Hezbollah town and made a big mass graveyard of all the Palestinians that had been shot because they had gone and attacked Israel. Surprise attack on Israel, and Israel just went through and mowed them down. So we showed up. The platoon that was there hadn't done anything in a few months, and it was pretty quiet.
Were you attached to the UN at that point? Your asset or your?
We were not attached to the United Nations, but the United Nations was there, and it was a unilateral peacekeeping force that Ronald Reagan sent us to be a part of. It was a coalition of British, Italian, Spanish, French, and Americans. So we were there. We landed. We relieved the first platoon. We were 5th platoon. We got there. Had a Sea Fox with a banner on it, and written in Arabic was, "Hey, we're Americans. We're here to help you." And we get on the Sea Fox and we go out. Our first day there, we turned over with the other platoon, and their ship pulled out. We were there with our little sign that they gave us, tiny little American flag. Put on the Sea Fox, we all get on with our guns, and we're like, hey, man, here we go. We're going to ride around. We had 250s in the back, 260s on the front of this thing, and we're out driving around with this big Arabic sign. We drive north, we look around, we go right by the beach where we're going to live. Then we went south. When we got south, an Israeli gunboat comes up with a big Israeli flag on it. And they had the old 40 millimeter cannons with the big hoops that would go into your shoulders.
Yeah.
Boom,
Almost
boom,
like
boom.
the anti-aircraft ones.
Anti-aircraft guns from World War II.
Yeah.
And they come roaring up and they swing these big 40 millimeter guns around our little Navy boat.
Sea Fox.
And they're barreling down on us. And we're standing there with this tiny little American, hey, we're Americans, with this big sign in Arabic on it. They were going to blow us out of the water. And thank God they didn't. And it was a real situation. There was real gunfighting going on. And we did nothing for the first several months. And it was hot, and it was summer, and we were in Lebanon, and we were underwater demolition team. But we, every week, you'd live on the beach for a week, guarding the beach, and then you'd be on the ship for a week, just rested, and you swap off back and forth. We went all around the
essentially
airport.
Port and
starboard, all around the airport. We went to the Marine barracks all the time. They had a kind of a Navy exchange in there. You could go buy stuff. There was another exchange up by the front gate of the airport, and they were training Lebanese armed forces on this base. They ran a boot camp to teach them how to be Marines. And we just hung out in the water. We water skied. It was our
behind the Sea Fox?
Yeah, behind the Sea Fox. We would go up to this place called Junie Harbor, and we'd go. One guy in our platoon had a knee ski. We'd go knee skiing around behind the Sea Fox, and we just hung out. Our AOIC brought his surfboard. We'd go surfing off the coast, and it was apocalypse now, man. Hanging out.
You
surfing
did it for real
in a combat zone. Then we found out there was a place along the beach where we could buy beer. And it was, you're dry on a deployment. So we'd get in a boat, we'd drive up the beach, and they'd send swimmer scouts in, just two guys in UDT life jacket, UDT shorts, and fins. And we'd take a waterproof bag, and we'd swim in, go through the surf, climb up on these rocks, go up to the store. It was Habib's. You go into Habib's, and you'd fill the thing with ice and beer, and fill that bag up, tie it off, come back, jump in the water, swim back out to the boat, go back, and we'd sit in our tent and we'd just drink beer and hang out and just screwing around. And as the summer wore on, they started shooting at us, and they'd lob artillery in, mortars, and it would be round, 2 rounds. Then they started shooting machine guns, and every night we'd sit on top of our Conex boxes, and we had the whole beach, and we had one lane of a 4-lane highway, and it was 55-gallon drums full of tar, one on top of the other, all the way down this lane of a 4-lane highway. And there were Marines guarding both ends. There were beach masters. There were Seabees. And there was us, a small detachment of our guys, and a big tower in the middle. They were watching everything. There was a dump right across the street from us, and on the other side of the dump was the airport. And the dump was where all of Lebanon dumped their trash, so it smelled beautiful. And we just hung out and played cards and went swimming and did PT and got strong, lifted weights, and just hung out. And then they'd say, hey, we got to go do a reconnaissance. So we'd go up to downtown Beirut, and we would swim in and do reconnaissance to find other ways to evacuate the American embassy, to evacuate other people at alternative sites. And it was easy going. And then about August, they really started shooting. And they started shooting machine guns, and you'd be sitting in a tent watching a movie, and the tent was full of these huge leather couches, and there was a desk where the Master Chief of the Seabees sat in front of this really big tent where we ate, and he had a huge beautiful wooden desk, like an executive desk, and then there was a patio with patio furniture all over it, tables, chairs. We're like, where did you guys, do you bring this with you? What do you Seabees travel? So they go, no. We got this from the American Embassy, and the American Embassy had been blown up in April. We got there in May, and they took it all out of the American Embassy. So we're living on executive furniture from the American Embassy, from all these people that got blown up. So we'd sit in these big leather couches and watch movies in the Seabees tents at night, and there was the barrels were outside. And then they started shooting machine guns, and you'd be sitting in a tent and just tracers would be whizzing through the ceiling. And as long as you stayed low, you weren't going to get hit. So we was like, man, this is getting more real. And then we'd do Jeep patrols up into the city, and people would be looking at you. People point guns at you sometimes, but nobody shot. And we were always loaded. A kid died. Body was floating way out at sea, and we were on the ship at one point, and there was a body floating out at sea, and they said, hey, send the SEALs to go get the body. So we went in and got this little kid's body, or this looked like a grown man, muscle bound. Turned out he was 13. He had died, and his body went to the bottom and popped up. And our corpsman was our chief, and an engineering rep, our OIC, and they said, you got to go, because I was junior man. I got picked for all those kind of deals. So we went out.
Being a junior man is great in a lot of capacities because you get to do everything.
You
Nobody wants to do shit anymore.
Yeah, and I had all the shit jobs. So I had to go swimming in. This kid was floating on the surface. Only an inch of his body's in the water. He was floated under him.
What is that, Boyle's Law? Where the gas is expanding?
Well, the gas is expanding in his body and floated him right up to the top.
Yep.
So we had to take him into the beach. So we throw a cargo net over him and we drag him into the beach. It was miles. It was probably 10 miles in. So we go to drag him to civilian beach, and our OIC said, hey, we don't want to drag this kid's body up to for civilians to see.
Yeah.
So the French Foreign Legion had a beach, and they were right on the water. And we knew about it, but we didn't go there much. So we called our other squad was on the beach, and we said, hey, meet us at the French Foreign Legion. So they got a truck, and they went up to where the French Foreign Legion was. And we met the Foreign Legion guys. We show up on their beach with a body, and they called a Red Crescent, not Red Cross in the Middle East. Ambulance was waiting for us, and they were pissed that we desecrated this kid's body. We said, we didn't desecrate his body. We brought him in from out to sea. You could have put him in the boat with you. Well, the kid was falling apart, and we kept him in the water to keep him whole. And they were angry at us. So one of our guys put his gloves on, gets in the water, and goes to pick the kid up, and his hands go right into the bone, and skin just comes right off his arms as we're picking him up. And we had picked this kid up and put him on a stretcher for the Red Crescent to take away. So a few months later, they started shooting at us more. We did a bunch of other stuff. They brought in a big shipment of ammo. We had to guard that. And then I got my second Liberty. Oh my God! I got a first Liberty in Italy. Got friggin' trashed in Italy. Got my second Liberty. We went.
Wait a second. Had to take a little admin break. We're back. So you were loading this kid up.
We loaded the kid up. We got him turned over, and it was just one of those things you see. And I, started seeing bodies and started seeing people shooting at each other, and it never bothered me. I was young and I was dumb and I was invincible. And but shooting was happening, it was going on, and it just didn't register with me. But on October 23rd, I was 5 miles off the coast of Egypt. We were pulling in for our second Liberty. Sunday morning in civilian
Where, Alexandria?
clothes. In Alexandria, Egypt.
Yep.
We just got dressed in civilian clothes, and we were going on our second Liberty. And the pilots just pulled up to the ship. They just climbed on board, and or just about to, and they got a call from Lebanon. They said, hey, there's been an explosion. Iwo Jima's got to turn around and go back. There's been an explosion. Well, there had been so many explosions and so many Marines had died in the months prior to this. We were just pissed. We're like, what? You're taking our liberty away. And we were just angry and disgruntled. And all day long we steamed back to Lebanon. And about every hour they were saying, well, there's 11 people dead. We're like, that's a lot of people. And there's 47 people dead. And into the night, there's 90 people dead. And we were like, holy cow, what the hell happened? 7:30 the next morning, Monday morning, we pull into Lebanon. And they go, hey, SEALs, you guys are the first up on deck. So we had our dress camis on and a bag of civilian clothes. We go up to the flight deck. They put us on a 46, and they flew us over to our ship, the Portland. And they landed on the deck, and the OIC said, listen, helicopter's not shutting down. get your field gear, get your weapons, and let's go. So we dropped off our stuff. We had all our field gear packed, our weapons packed in boxes. We grabbed everything, jumped on the helicopter, and we flew over to Beirut. We'd flown there a few times, did some jumps and stuff. And as you went in, the tallest building was the Marine Barracks. And we didn't really know what happened. We still didn't know what happened. As we're flying in, you're just looking out these tiny little windows on the 46.
Like
you can't see
they're
much.
like portholes, and they're like bubbled, and you can't really see out of them.
And you're looking for the landmarks you can spot that you can identify where the hell you are.
So you're looking for the Marine building.
And we're looking outside, and then we see this hole where the Marine building was, this collapsed rubble, the tallest building around the airport. We were like, holy shit. That's when we found out what had happened. And they landed at a completely different place. We never landed on the airport. And as we're coming in to land, you look out the window and there's C-141s on the runway. And there's just lines of pallets of silver caskets. Line in the air, pallet after pallet after pallet with, 30, 40 caskets on it. And we said, what the hell happened? We get out, they brought a 6x down. They said, get your shit and get in the truck. So we throw our gear up there and we jump in the back of this truck. We start driving up this hill between these hangar buildings. And there's Marines on the roof with a 60. And they're looking down the road. And all of a sudden we get up to the intersection of this road where we're going to go across to the airport. And the Marines just start opening fire down the road. And we're like, holy shit. They're fighting. The truck stopped because of shooting. We jumped out of the back of the 6x to go get in the first firefight, and we go running up there. And we guns down the road, and whatever they were shooting at was gone. There was nothing to shoot at. We get back in the truck, and we go across a gate. I'd never been in the Beirut airport, and it was beautiful gates and beautiful gardens.
I've been there several times.
Gorgeous. And we drive in the front gate, and we're like, what the hell? This is like, we've never seen it from this angle. Because we only seen the crap around the airport where the Marines are living. And then we recognized this building that we would go to. We'd walk up and go to that building, and they turn to the right, and we could start going down this hill. Lebanese cedars line this road. They're 40, 50 feet tall trees and beautiful. As we start driving down the hill, the smell hit you in the face like a baseball bat. I mean, you were like, oh, and it was the smell of dead bodies. And as we crested the hill and started going down, it looked like Apocalypse Now. There's human bodies hanging in all the trees. There's probably 30 guys up in the trees, hanging. They were so high up they couldn't get them. In their sleeping bags, and their gym shirts, and their shorts, their socks. There's
a lot of civilians
towels,
died that day,
underwear.
too.
There was just
Right.
bodies. We'd go down this hill. We turned the corner, and there's where the barracks was. It was 2-story high pile of rubble. And they stopped the truck, and we left our backpacks and our stuff in there. And the OIC said, listen, you guys go in pairs. A Marine captain comes up and pulls our lieutenant off to the side, and he tells him what's going on. And then the lieutenant comes back. He says, Frank Scully, what a great, great guy. He said, this is what you're going to do. We've got security clearances. Nobody else does around here. You're going to go through this pile of rubble. You're going to help pick up bodies. You're going to collect every gun you can find, every radio you can find, and any secret message traffic that's laying around. You collect it. And don't give it to anybody. You bring it back.
Right.
And he goes, go help. And we just split up in pairs. And myself and Willie Hernandez start walking, and we walk up this pile of rubble. They're trying to get this Marine out. He's in his PT shorts, his boots and his socks, and he's laying on top of just this piles of concrete, and he's covered in dust, covered from all the stuff that came down on top of him. And his right hand is gone, and you can't see his head. And there's a block of concrete that's probably 2.5 feet thick on where his head is. And there's red Lebanese guys working on this thing, strapping it off, and they got a crane to it, and they're going to lift it up, and there's a body bag right next to the guy. So we're going to help put him in a body bag. And the crane lifts up, and that guy's head is as big around as, I don't know, 2 feet wide, and it's about an inch thick. Brains, teeth, eyes, hair, blood, and I can describe it, but I can't see it anymore. Like, I cannot see it. I can see everything else I'm telling you. I can't see that. And we help stretch this body bag open. It's all these Lebanese guys, and one guy speaks English, nobody else does. And Willie and I put our weapons over our shoulders, and we're helping. And I pick this guy's right leg up. We pick him up, and we put his left hand and his head in the bag, and his head's just flopping. And we get it in there, and then I can't see it anymore. And we get his whole left side in the bag, and we're pulling the bag open, but rigor mortis set in, so we can't get the guy in the bag.
You got to break his legs.
So we're trying. So they go, whoa, blah, 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 and they're speaking Farsi, and they're backing us up, and Willie and I back up. We're like, well, how do you guys do this? We back up, and this Lebanese guy jumps in the air and comes crashing down with both feet on this guy's hip, and you just hear his femur just snap, and Willie and I just pull our rifles off. Boom, and we put guns on these guys. They're like, oh, don't move. We're like, fuck you, get back. We're fucking shoving these guys. Get what the fuck are you doing? And the one English speaker comes down and gets in front of our guns. He's like, no. He goes, we have to do this. This is the only way to get them in the bag. We have to. We think they're desecrating their bodies, treating Marines like they're freaking garbage, And we're like, fuck you. And he goes, this is what we have to do. We're like, oh, all right, we get it. So they break this guy's arm and his leg, and it's the most sickening sound you ever heard in your life. And we push this guy in, fold him into the bag. They start zipping the bag up. They zip it all the way up, and he springs back in the bag. That was one of a ton of bodies. I was picking guys up by the handful. I got blood and guts all over me just from putting guys in bags.
How long did that go on for?
I don't know. It's all like a blur. Mm-hmm. Hours. We were doing for hours.
Did you have to day after day?
George Bush and the Commandant of the Marine Corps came down, and they're walking by us as we're doing
At that time,
this.
Bush was the head of the CIA, right?
Bush was the vice president of the
United
States.
He was the vice president. That was afterwards. Okay,
he was the vice president.
And he went to Lebanon?
He was there Monday morning.
Oh.
With his...
You think Biden went to the gate in Afghanistan? I mean...
With his Secret Service detail and a Marine contingent, and Al Gray, who was the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and George Bush.
Wow.
Walk right up to us. They're shaking people's hand. We couldn't shake the vice president's hand because we were covered in crap. We can't.
You're walking hazmat.
We were nasty, to say the least. I tell you that story because of this. That thing that haunted me for a long time.
How many weeks were you picking body parts apart?
We did it that day, and then we went back to the beach, and they said, "We'll call you when we need you." And then at night, they were shooting at us while we were doing this. There were snipers shooting at us, so we had to guard people against the snipers, which you can't see a sniper, so it's useless. But you're there if somebody pops out and does something stupid. So we were hiding behind piles doing this, picking people up. But at night, they would cart the stuff off. And at night, we would have to go, and with a poncho and a red lens flashlight, you would have to go through the piles.
Right.
So snipers couldn't see you. And you'd dig through, and we'd collect secret papers. And you're reading about, your baby was just born. Fuck. And collecting radios and parts and weapons. And then one night we find a thing the size of like a big ham just in the rubble. And it's just covered in dirt and dried blood and hair. And it's obviously like a guy's thigh or his ass cheek or something. And my buddy finds it in red lens flashlight. And we're like, fuck. He goes, what do we do with this? And I'm like, so we just covered it up. Because back then we didn't know about DNA.
No.
What am I going to do? Collect this guy's little thigh?
Ass cheek?
Or ass cheek or whatever it was. And so we just covered body parts up. If it was something we could identify, we would have picked it up, but we couldn't. So I come back from Lebanon, and I'm in that platoon. I do another platoon with them, but, man, we just started drinking heavily after that. That's when my drinking started hardcore to hide out from that kind of stuff. And then I was in the teams, and I was happy, and I was like, hey, man, I'm a team guy, and I got a combat action ribbon out of it. I went from bare-chested to 2 rows of medals with a combat action ribbon on top. I'm an E3, and I made E4 at the end of that deployment. And so I show up, man, I got my gold wings on that deployment, just jumping. So like I went from bare chested to freaking. Oh, they handed me my Trident on the bus on the way to leave on deployment. I hadn't even been to pre-deployment training, and they're like, "Hey, Doug doesn't have his bird. He's the only one in the platoon." You know, OIC He goes, "Do you have a Trident?" I go, "Hell yeah, I got a Trident." He goes, "Put it on." That's how I got my Trident. Going on my first deployment. But when we came home, we were good, and we never said we weren't. But at night, we would drink a lot.
And nobody talked about anything.
And nobody said boo. There was no mental health, nothing. And while I was in Lebanon, I didn't share a whole bunch of just getting shot at, mortared. I was in a Katyusha rocket attack.
Yeah, that's what you did.
And shit was landing all around. How I'm still here talking, I don't know, but just never got hit.
God has a plan, as we say.
And got shot off the beach delivering a guy to the American Embassy, and literally went down to the boat, a Sea Fox, and the Sea Fox ran out to sea as a machine gun shooting at us.
So you left high dry on the beach?
Me and a guy are on a staircase at the quay wall in Lebanon, machine gun shooting over us, shooting at the boat. And this guy's an E4, been in the teams a little while, looks at me, an E2 or E3 with nothing. He goes, "What do we do?" And I go, "I don't know what you're thinking, Kelly, but here's what I'm doing. I'm going to drop my gear right here at the bottom of this wall. I'm getting in that water and I'm swimming out to sea, and we'll figure it out. But we can't fight from here. There's not, they got a machine gun and we got two freaking M16s. I go, I'm out of here, and I'll swim. I'll go to the water. And as we're getting ready to drop our gear, the boat comes back, and we jump back on. We're like, thank God. And our buddy Dave is up in the front of the boat with his weapon pointed down, and the coxswain is yelling, screaming at him. The coxswain had been in Vietnam as
They weren't returning
Marine.
Fire?
They didn't return fire. Dave was the only SEAL on the boat, and the three people were in the front of the Sea Fox. It was the engineman, the comms guy, and the coxswain are all in the front of the Sea Fox. Nobody was manning guns. And they took off and ran. Dave couldn't even shoot for us, give us cover, because he took off and ran. So they came back to the wall. Dave's got his rifle in the back of the guy's head, and the guy's screaming at him. He's an E5, and and Dave's like an E4, and he had been in the Marines in Vietnam. And he's going, you pointing gun at me. He's this black guy. He's like, hey, you pointing gun at me. You're gonna get court-martialed. And Dave's like, shut up and drive the boat. And he picked us up. We're like, Dave, what the hell? You guys ran off on us. He goes, yeah, Jim ran off on you. He goes, we came back and got you. And he goes, yeah, you're in trouble. We get back to the ship. They lift us on the ship. The OICs come down. Jim is screaming. All the ship's crew is all the blue shirts are hanging around watching this. And OIC comes up, what the hell's going on? What are you yelling? Stop it. Splits up Dave and this guy, Jim. Jim's, hey, he's court-martial, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what happened? Jim tells him, well, we were getting shot at and blah, blah, blah. And Dave says, we're getting shot at, and he ran away. I made him go back. And the officers are looking at him, and they go, Doug, Kelly, what happened? We go, we were walking back to the boat, and they opened up on us with a machine gun. We made it to cover, and the boat was gone. We were going to swim back. All right, they go. And this guy was the second class.
Mm-hmm.
They go, you go up to the stateroom. We're filling out a page 13 on you. We can't send you back right now. We need you. But if you do anything else, you're getting court-martialed. And they made him sign page 13. They looked at Dave. They go, freaking absolutely right thing to do. And that's who those guys were. I went through the rest of my time in the teams. I got to learn all kinds of cool stuff. I did all kinds of good stuff in SEAL Team 4, plank owner there. And then I went to my first shore duty. I finished college. I was going to be I got accepted Officer Candidate School. And I was going to go be an O. And then 2 weeks later, on my 27th birthday, right after my 27th birthday, I drowned doing breath holding and died on the bottom of the swimming pool. Was in a coma for 2 days and ICU for 4. I woke up and got seen by a bunch of doctors, and they told me, you can never drink again.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not drinking now. Hey, it's got nothing to do with anything. And they said, a neurologist at Naval Air Medical Institute, sat down across from me. Drowning is just like, to survive drowning is just like being in drunk to the point where you're going to black out, if you've ever been a blackout drinker.
Mm-hmm.
It's right before you black out and you feel ethereal, feels good. You probably want to do it. And your whole world is tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
I could only see directly what I was looking at. Anything on the periphery didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if I looked at you, I could see you, and this didn't exist. And if I looked at you, this didn't exist. And my memory was so short, I couldn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So if I met somebody, go, hey, my name's Doug, what's your name?
John. Yeah.
Good to meet you. And I turn around, yeah, hey. And I turn back around, and I mean this quick. Hi, my name's Doug.
John, remember me?
Groundhog Day. You guys have seen it, and just people would dog you out for having this level of brain damage. But the reason I bring all that up is this, that the doctors at NAMI told me this. They did a whole scan of my brain. They gave me psychological tests. They go, man, you're a sharp guy. You got a lot going on. And the neurologist said, you can never drink again. And I said, why? And he goes, this is your brain. He goes, you got all the big part of your brain around you. This is your spinal cord, and this is the inner part of your brain. Do you know why you feel good when you drink? And I'm looking at him, I go, no. He said, when you drink, oxygen attaches here in your brain. That's what makes you whole.
Mm-hmm.
The reason you feel good when you drink is the alcohol molecule attaches to your brain and does not allow the oxygen molecule
mm-hmm.
to attach. And the more you drink, the more you starve your brain of oxygen. That's what feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever been in the O2 chamber,
mm-hmm.
going altitude, that's hypoxia.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels good
mm-hmm.
because you're starving your brain of oxygen. That's all alcohol does, is it suffocates you. It starves you for oxygen. And he looked right at me, he goes, you've done so much damage to your brain that you can never drink again. And I don't remember anything for the months. I don't remember drowning. I don't remember my first son being born. I don't remember my second. I don't remember so much. But I remember this doctor going right nose to nose with me and explaining that to me. He goes,
mm-hmm.
you can never drink again. I said, I'll never drink again. I've never had a drink since August 13th of 1990. But not drinking is just hell on earth. It doesn't mean anything. That is not sobriety. That's not drinking. And I went 8 years of not drinking. And I was miserable. And my family fell apart. And I was mean. And I was somber. I had no feelings because the amount of damage that was done to my brain destroyed this back part of my brain called your amygdala. Amygdala is all your emotions. It's what makes you feel. And the front of your brain, and that was destroyed. That's your inhibitors. When you get the urge to punch somebody out, but you're like, this is not the right time and place, your inhibitors are what's keeping you from lashing out, raging, going. Mine were shot. I didn't have any. So I'd be a docile, quiet human being who could never afford any. I couldn't afford it. He told me, don't get in fights, don't hold your breath, don't drink. You can't afford any damage to your brain. So I protected my melon. I did everything I had to do as a team guy, but I had to protect it. But alcohol works on your brain the same way this injury did. And he goes, you can't afford it. So I lived in a world of hell with no emotions and watched my family implode until my wife was like, look, I can't, you're nothing. You don't do anything. I couldn't be intimate. I couldn't nothing. And she's like, man, and we had 2 kids when I drowned. She was pregnant with my third.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved back here from Panama City, which is where it happened. and I got orders, and I had to go to SDV team. And I begged.
Where were you, down at EDU down in Panama City?
I was at the dive locker down
Okay,
there,
gotcha,
just doing diving.
Right.
I was right next to the EDU
Yeah.
in Panama City.
A lot of wacky shit goes on at EDU.
Wacky.
Experimental diving unit.
And I came.
And then the dive schools down there.
And the dive schools across the way.
Dive school, yeah.
Yep. And I was down there working with a bunch of divers, and went to college. Had a great time in Panama City. It's a fun place to be.
Down the hatch and 10-foot stop.
Down the hatch, 10-foot stop, La Vila, Spinnaker.
Yeah.
I mean, I could get a little list of bars and craziness. But I couldn't drink, and my wife just watched me just turn into like a friggin' zombie. I just go to work and come back, and it was hell on earth. And then I was an STT instructor for a few years. Oh, I went to STB team, and there I drowned two more times because of the rig failure.
What year was that?
1991 into 92.
Got around the compound like wildfire.
Yeah.
It happened at the Cyclops? What did happen?
The first one happened down in Puerto Rico, and I got pulled out of the water with my mask off. They did a complete neuro on me. Said, all right, you can keep diving. And I stayed at SDV team. Second one happened doing an SDV run up to the barges at Mudsu in Little Creek Cove.
Didn't somebody die at the Cyclops?
Yes.
Yeah,
right
an
after
officer,
me.
right?
Nope.
No, not
Carter Dean.
Was some kind of traumatic shock from the cold water or something? I don't remember.
Carter Dean was diving. They were diving dry suits there. He was an SDB team also, and they were just right in 8 feet of water, right at the bottom of the pier.
Yeah.
And he was in there, and I can't remember the specifics right now, but he was having a problem, and a rig problem. I think his wetsuit, dry suit, was filling up or something. Anyway, they brought him up, and he had passed out underwater and drowned.
Yeah.
And they brought him up, and they tried to revive him, and
remember that.
he died. And another guy, Keith Kimura, died in the tower at
Out of
Buds.
Buds, yeah. He was the guy who did the bone frog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go back to your mishap with the barges over at Mudsu.
So I was in...
Mudsu's Mobile Dive and Salvage Unit.
I had finished advanced operator training. I got into a platoon, task unit, brand new gear. We're driving, working it up. I'm the LPO of this task unit, and I'm trying to get all our gear up to speed and running. And we had dive gear that was just failing all the time. And one day an officer comes in. I'm still trying to get the dive gear together, and we're testing the boats. And this officer comes in and goes, "Hey, I'm not diving today. You got to be the navigator." And I go, "Hey, listen, I got too much work to do. I got all this gear I got to bring up." He said, "No, you have to dive today." I go, all right. So I tried to pre-dive a rig to get it ready. It failed. I'd pre-dive another one. Failed. Pre-dive a third one. Failed. Break out a fourth one. Scavenge all the parts from the other failed rigs to get this thing up and pre-dive so it's running right. And Mark 15, I'll just tell you this. It's got sensors.
Yeah.
It's got electronics packages and a battery, and you got to get it all up and running correctly so it'll give you the proper amount of oxygen when you're underwater.
Yeah, so SDV is a whole nother
it's
animal.
A whole
you have boat air, you have your own air.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
crazy.
It's a lot. You got the passengers in the back.
So I get this rig up and running, and it's working. And I call my wife, and I say, "Hey, they're making me dive today." She's like, "Oh, man, you shouldn't be diving." I said, "I know." And I wound up being an STT instructor. Well, I'll tell you that. Anyway, I was like, I know I shouldn't, but I got to. This is my job. I'm a SEAL. I got to go. And this is from somebody who's died now twice. And they're making me go, and I know it's bad. And I go, all right, I'll do it. So I get in the water, I dive. We go out of Desert Cove. We make a right. We go all the way out to the Lima Charlie Boo, which is a mile off the coast.
Yep.
Have to make a run on this thing, do it perfectly, come back in the cove.
The Lima Charlie buoy is where you did your runs for your time with your combat loaded Zodiacs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 1 mile off the jetty.
Yep, you do
exactly,
consumption.
1 nautical mile.
Yeah.
So we come back in, we're going through the harbor, and I'm the navigator. I'm navigating us all the way in there, and I see everything, and then that's the last thing I remember. But I'm still giving the pilot commands, telling him, I navigate us all the way in, but I can't remember it because my brain's gone. And he's making the attack run on this barge, and then all of a sudden he hears strange stuff because we can talk to each other on intercom underwater. He hears me breathing weird. He looks over in the boat, and my hands are locked back like this. Mm-hmm. I'm in the boat, and he's going, Doug, 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 and I'm not answering. And if you ever find a body like this, that means central nervous system got hit, the brain, and this is what happens to your body when your brain gets hit. If you cut somebody's spine or you hit the brain, boom, their hands locked back. And my hands were, boom, locked back. This guy brings the boat up, gets me on the surface, rips my face mask off, gets me on top. Boat comes over. The corpsman who got me same thing happened to me in Puerto Rico 6 months before. The corpsman, or 3 months before. The corpsman who got me on that one is in the boat. He's like, oh, shit, Doug. And they grab me, they pull me out, rip the mask off, and there's blood in my mouth.
What was it, an O2 hit?
There's blood in my mouth.
What was it?
So blood in your mouth is one of the primary signs of arterial gas embolism.
Oh.
If you embolize, that means your lungs have filled so much that the air bubbles are forced out into your bloodstream. If an air bubble goes to your heart or your brain, you have 10 minutes to shrink it or you die.
Your O2 wasn't out of the system?
So they see blood in my mouth and they go, AGE, AGE. Mm-hmm. They call the chamber. Mudsu is right there. And they go, we're going to Mudsu. Yeah. And they start running to Mudsu. I'm lying in the bottom of the boat.
Would they have the whalers then?
Yeah, I was in a whaler.
So at least it was a good boat you were in.
I was in a good whaler. I'm laying in the bottom of the boat. And it's just like you're coming out of a blackout drunk, coming back around. Just like if you've ever been to the O2 chamber, taking your mask off. Yeah. I'm coming back around, and I hear them going to the chamber, AGE, and I taste blood in my mouth. I'm like, what the hell? And then I had a seizure and bit the whole back chunk of my tongue off in my mouth. So I know I bit my tongue. I feel the pain. I'm like, stop, Frank, stop. Spitting blood everywhere. Stop the boat, stop the boat, stop the boat. And Frank's like, and they stop the boat. He looks at me and go, Frank, I bit my tongue. I bit my fucking tongue. He goes, oh, hold on.
Did they still make you do a chamber ride?
He told them that I had arterial gas embolism.
Did they still make you do a chamber ride?
So we still had to go to Mudsu. So there's 3 master divers in there, and Frank has to talk. They did a complete neuro on me. I've had so many neuros that make you sick. I can pass a neuro. They did a neuro on me. He's good. Frank says, we can't put him in chamber. They go, nope, we're putting him on at table 6. Boom, he's going.
Your standard
table 6 means I would have been in a chamber for like days.
Yeah.
And they go, and Frank goes, no, it's it. Look, and they're looking at my tongue. They finally, after like an hour, Frank talks them out of it. And they didn't put me in. And an hour later, I'm still alive.
Frank who, okay? Who was it? No, Frank.
Frank McCacci.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, he was a diver, diving med tech. And they go, well, you take them over to Boone Clinic. So they took me over to Boone Clinic. They put me on. They did a bunch of tests, CT scans. They scanned my brain. And they go, he's all right. And they sent me back. So the next day I go into work. I'm getting back from my task unit, and they go, hey, pack your shit. The XO comes down. He comes down the locker room. He goes, Corey, yeah. He goes, the commanding officer has made a decision. I go, yeah, what's that? Now, I had just had about 300 hours underwater. I had more dive time than we all did from diving so much. So I had 300 hours underwater. He goes, yeah, the CO's taking your dive pay and sending you to be an instructor.
Who was it?
I'm not going to announce it on this thing. It'll go out to people. But he goes, the CO's taking your dive pay. And I was like, what? Can you just let my dive pay run out? Because as an SDV guy, I was making about close to $800 a month extra duty pay. Yeah. I had free fall pay, SDV
was
pay,
like $375
special duty assignment
pay.
Yeah, it was $300. Dive pay was $300.
But you guys got more though, didn't you?
Well, we got $300 a month. You only got like 160 or something.
Yeah,
and then we got special duty assignment pay on top of that. It was a lot of money.
Tax free. And
I was like, hey, wait a minute, don't take that away from me, And he's like, nah, So I'm like, shit. I go out in the compound. I call a buddy of mine who I'd been in Panama City, Florida with. He was a diving med tech. And he got picked up and he went to Dev Group. And he was at Dev Group. And I called him up. I said, hey, Jim, man, this is what happened to me. And I said, they're taking all my pay. They're sending me out and they're taking all my pay. He's like, damn, Doug, all right. So he goes and talks to a buddy of mine who's in the weight room, Dirty Dan Simpson. And he's like, you hear what they're doing to Doug McQuarrie? Dan's like, what? They're in the weight room. Dan racks his weights. He goes into the CEO of Dev Group, goes in his office. He goes, do you know what the CEO of STV team doing at Doug? And Tom Mosier was the skipper of Dev at the time. And he said, what? And he knew the CEO at STV. So he called him up. He said, what are you doing? What are you doing at Doug? All this is taking place, and I'm packing my shit to leave. And the XO comes down to my locker, and he says, come here. Takes me up to his office. The offices are joined by a bathroom.
Yeah.
He closes the bathroom door to the skipper's office. Skipper's on the phone. He goes, what did you do? And I go, what? I'm packing my bag to go. He goes, the CEO of Dev Group is on the phone with the commanding officer chewing his ass out. He goes, pack your shit and get out of the building right now. He goes, all your dive pay is back. We're turning it all back on. He goes, leave and don't come back here. And the CEO of Dev Group chewed out the CEO of STV and said, turn his pay back on and just let it run out. So I went to be an instructor for years and just a dry drunk. And then fast forward, I made chief. I got the Navy Marine Corps Medal for saving a guy right after those two murderers killed that girl at Virginia Beach.
We want to talk about that.
And I'd been their instructor. That was in the...
that was what Jeff O'Connor was involved in that.
I was working for Jeff.
I remember Jeff. I love Jeff. I hope he's doing well. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah.
I remember I went over to SDT to take some stuff over. They were trying to sort out more opposite combat swimming. They wanted some SEAL Team 2 guys over there for some reason. But anyways, Jeff told me that whole story, man.
Yes.
About how Jeff said, you guys can keep your birds, just tell me where the body is.
Jeff was so
He's
smart.
just amazing, man.
Amazing guy. I love Jeff. I love working for him. So right after that, literally like a week or two later, I'm taking boats up to AP Hill. We're still teaching up there. And I turned around. It's in the summer, and I'm driving back to Virginia Beach. I'm driving through Ocean View because the traffic was so bad on the highways.
Yeah.
And coming back, 4 police cars passed me. I'm like, what the hell? They're all on the bridge that goes over Little Creek Cove in Ocean View.
Oh, yeah.
And I park this truck I'm driving. I'm in shorts and a T-shirt, which I'm not supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in full uniform. It's July. It's hotter than hell.
Fuck that.
I go running up the bridge.
Yeah, those trucks had no AC in them.
Yeah, none.
Was those diesel pickups and blazers?
Crap. And I run up to the top of the bridge and go, what the hell's going on? 4 cops standing there pointing into the water. They go, there's a woman out there drowning. I go, well, let's go get her.
Yeah.
I see a cop on the shore pointing out there. So I run down, jump my truck, drive to him. I go, where is she? He goes, over there. She's all the way across this channel. I throw all my stuff to him, take off my shirt. I run, jump in the water, swim all the way across this channel. Come up to this woman laying in the water, grab her, pull her into me. Her whole neck is bloody. Just
got hit by a boat?
Just scraped up. And she just goes, when I grab her. She tenses up when I grab her. And I go, you just lay back and don't move, and I'll get you in. And she just went,
did she get hit by a boat?
She vodka, just breathed vodka all
over me. My goodness.
I tow her in. Cops standing on the beach watching me. The dive team for the department pulls up. They're in their truck with their wave runners on the back, and the cop standing in ankle deep water. This old fat cop. He turns around, looks at me, goes, "Get out of here!" They just drive off. Another cop pulls up, gets his life jacket out, gives the old cop his gun belt. He comes swimming out to me, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" I'm swimming in. This is a heavy current. It's a long way. I'm towing this woman in.
Where is this?
It's the channel that goes to Little Creek that runs through Ocean View where the marina is and everything. It's on the other side of the bridge over there in Ocean View. It opens up into a big waterway over there. It's in that.
Yeah, that does run.
It runs when the current's running. It's
it does.
hauling ass. And she swept in
Yes.
because of that current.
Oh, that'll ride out there.
Oh,
through
yeah.
that channel to the buoy out there.
So the cop is fighting his way out to me. He goes, I'm here to help you. And I go, good. Don't let go of that life jacket. And I just swim right past
Right.
him. He's dog
Wow.
paddling in. We put this woman on a backboard, load her up. Now, these SEAL teams had nothing but trouble because of this. And I am like getting out of here. I'm not in a uniform. I'm like, I got to go. I go to get my wallet back from the cop. He's like, oh, no. Who are you? What are you? And I go, hey, man, I'm just here to help, I'm gone. He goes, no, we need your name. And all right. I give him my name and tell him I'm from Group 2. And he goes, all right. I get in the truck. I drive back to work. This is a Friday afternoon, summer. I drop the truck off. I take a shower. I get my civilian clothes on. I go to leave. And I tell the quarterdeck watch, I go, hey, if anybody calls, I just save somebody, and the news calls. Next morning, the command calls me up. Or the press calls me and says, hey, you got to come to a press conference at the police station. Whatever. And I said, I got to call my command. So I call, like, SEALs are in trouble. I call the public affairs officer. I go, hey, I got this call, and they want me to go. And then PAO goes, wait, you hang on a minute. Puts the phone down, he runs off. He comes back like 5 minutes later. He goes,
go do it.
The Commodore said, put your nicest clothes on.
Go do it.
Get your wife and all your kids.
It was a Turner Brown incident.
It was Turner Brown.
Yeah.
He goes, you go do a press conference and you tell them how great you are. And I was like, all right. So
change the narrative.
I go down and we change the narrative. But I did save a drunk woman. Hey, when I saw her, she gave me a big hug. She's like, thank you so much. And she and her family had lost all their jobs and work up in Vermont. And they were in a camper just driving south looking for work. And she just went out and got a bottle and sat down on the jetty down by the marina and drank until she passed out and rolled in the water and floated off. She couldn't swim, and she was basically killing herself.
Yeah, when that opens up, that current howls around those corners of the jetties.
Howls. But that hit me. I'm like, man, I saved another drunk. All right, and you'll edit the crap out of this, and you need to. But so I go home.
No, you're fine.
And I'm teaching at SDT, and I put on chief that trip when I was up there. I found out I made chief.
Who else was at SDT? Was Hampton with you then?
Johnny Hampton.
Yeah, who else was over there?
Roger Roberts.
That's right.
Phil Januzzi.
Yes, yeah.
Steve Granger.
Yeah, Steve.
Mike Gray.
Yeah.
Mike Gray wrote me up for the Navy Marine Corps medal.
Mike's a good man. He was one of my platoon chiefs.
And
Januzzi and Roberts were my buzz instructors.
Yeah. So they made me write up. They go, you got to put in for an award. I go, well, I'm not putting in for an award. Whatever. And they go, you have to do your write-up. And I go, I'm not doing my write-up for an award. You guys write me up if you want me to have one or I won't get one. And they go, no, you have to. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I go in there and I open the awards manual up. I go, what's the biggest award I can give myself? So I look, Navy Marine Corps medal. Boom, I write it up. Mike Gray inherits this mess, and poor Mike Gray, he had to go and justify all this stuff. It went up to Admiral Borda was the chief of naval operations.
Who wound up getting into trouble.
Admiral Borda had just gotten in trouble when that had happened.
Lying about his service record, right?
He lied that he had a V for Valor on his Navy achievement and his Navy comm. And a reporter called him out on it. It happened like right after. In November of that year, I got awarded the medal. A week before I got awarded the medal, Borda put a .45 to his head and blew his brains out. And I got the award the week after he died. They presented it to me at Group 2. And I had made chief, and then I got the Navy Marine Corps medal. That's awesome, and they were like, freaking, you're all set. I went over to SEAL Team 4. I got a platoon and was a platoon chief. And I did okay, but I had so many memory problems still. And it was tough being a platoon chief, handling the hooligans when you can only remember herding cats, man. And it was tough. And but my wife said, look, you just got to stay. I had to stay gone as an SDT instructor because they had taken all my dive pay away.
Yeah.
And I made money in per diem to support.
So Jeff, and your iteration was the first iteration taking an STT away from the teams.
It was just before me that they took it away from the
which
teams.
was a great call.
I was like second or third set of instructors. And then we started out with Barnes, Warrant Officer Barnes, who was a corpsman from SEAL Team 2, who did not go through BUDS, and people were like...
And then he got his bird taken away with the rest of the guys.
And then it was Mike Ballister, who I had done a platoon with when we were
Mikey
enlisted
Border
dudes.
Plate.
Mikey
Ballister.
Bluto Ballister.
Who's doing ship driver now.
Yeah, he is, and he's a great guy.
He's one of those guys in the teams that you will always remember fondly and never can say a bad thing about.
And then Jeff O'Connick made Warrant, and then he came, and I loved working for Jeff. He was a great guy and took good care of me. And the guys who I work with, everybody at STT, just good group of mugs.
Well, you had to do a good job. You had such high visibility then because all the teams were, sent their guys to you.
And a lot of guys from 2, Mike Delancey, Rob Morey, Mike Dowd. Mark Dodd.
Yeah, all 2 guys.
Mark Dodd. Great guys, all of them. And it was a great work experience. And then I had to go back to a team, and so I called up looking for a chief spot. My wife was pissed. She's like, look, you're on a regular schedule. You come home. And I go, I've got to go. I'm going to have to go, so I'm going to pick where I'm going to go. So I went back to Team 4. And my relationship with her just iced up. I did a year workup. I did a 6-month deployment down to Unit 8 down in Panama. Did good things. My platoon did well. All kinds of adventures.
Panama was the last PBRs.
Yes, they were still there.
Yeah, they were there when I went.
They were there at the unit.
Was Mike Ferguson down there when you were there?
I don't remember Mike Ferguson down. He could have been still, but no.
You meet guys in BUDS instructor who are total assholes, but you know why they were assholes after you meet them.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have met a better guy, team guy than a guy like Mike Ferguson.
Right.
But you don't understand it when you're going through training.
When you're getting killed by these guys.
Yeah, same with Januzzi, same with Roger.
Roger, and another guy we both know, Bobby Richardson.
Yep.
Another guy. All good mugs. Well, I went to 4. I got a platoon chief spot, and I was having trouble but hanging on, and my memory was shot, and it was tough. And when I came home from deployment, I wound up taking a spot as a career counselor so I could stay around and mend my family. And in March, I was going to go to career counselor school, and my wife came to me and said, "Hey, look, we're done. You got to move out." I'm like, "I'm finally home. I'm finally going to be around for a while."
And you're getting better.
And I'm getting better. And she goes, "It's it, too much damage. You got to move out." So I moved in with Johnny Hampton, we were instructor buddies together. And Johnny,
and I went through BUDS with John. He's great,
great mug.
John has a very funny story. John was at Coast.
Yeah.
So there's a famous outpost on the Afghani borders Pakistan, right?
Yeah.
And they work with LGF, local guard force, and this Jordanian doctor conned him into letting him on to Coast base, saying he knew where bin Laden was. Well, he was an asset for Al-Qaeda, I guess, at the time. Yeah. And he came onto the base and he blew himself up, and the CIA lost like years of corporate knowledge. It had everybody that was anybody in this meeting at the agency. And Johnny was one of the agency guards.
Johnny was in the frag radius.
He was in a frag radius.
They argued, don't let this guy in.
They argued. So, yeah.
He argued not to.
All of the security guys that knew what was going on, they dropped every protocol for this guy to come in.
And it was the agent, the senior agent.
Who wasn't even a field agent. She was an analyst.
That's right.
But Johnny, she was an analyst.
And they were arguing with her.
Yeah, it was terrible.
She let him in.
They even baked the guy a cake.
Yeah.
It was his birthday. He wanted a cake. So anyways, he blows himself up. Johnny does all this great stuff. He gets back from this deployment. They give him all these awards, right? But they take people's clearances while they're doing investigation. He goes, I don't want a fucking award. I want my clearance back so I can make some fucking money.
Yep.
But that's Johnny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remarkable. He has got a great story about that whole incident. But anyways, go
Johnny
ahead.
and
I know you're tight.
we're tight to
I know.
this day.
I love him. I'd do anything for him.
Well, he helped me out. He gave me a place to live for like over a year.
And that's what team guys do.
Yeah. So I was living at Johnny's house, and I'm trying to mend my relationship. And a year later, it's Christmas, and I go back to my house that I've worked hard for. My wife and I had a big house. We had 3 boys. My third boy was born, and then I talked her into, let's have another baby, and well, it'll be a girl. I'm from a family of 3 boys and a girl. I said, if we have another baby, it'll be a girl. Sure enough, we had a girl. So she was little. She was a baby. And she kicked me out. So I went to my house with my wife and my kids. My team guy friends were all over at my house. Mm-hmm. And my wife's boyfriend a guy she had met was in my kitchen. And I'm there at Christmas, and the whole reason that a big part of the reason we separated was because of this brain injury and no alcohol to soothe anything. I was just a walking rage machine, and I would be calm and quiet and this little guy and whatever, and then somebody pissed me off and I'd take down the world, man. And I scared the hell out of my wife. I scared my kids. So I'm sitting in my house and I can't lose my temper that there's this guy in my kitchen who I want to get up and beat into a bloody pulp on my kitchen floor for being with my wife at Christmas time right now. I mean, all I could think was I want to kill this guy. And I literally was just trembling, thinking about killing him. And I'm sitting in the living room with my kids and all my friends' kids, and I'm giving my kids Christmas presents at my house. Yeah,
and there's smoke coming out of ears and nose.
Smoke on Christmas Eve. And all right, thank you. And I got to say goodbye to my wife and my friends and her boyfriend in my kitchen and go home by myself to stay in Johnny's apartment. Johnny was away for Christmas leave, and I'm sitting there just like, so angry, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Now, I hadn't had a drink in 8 years at this point, and I called my father, who's 15 years in recovery. I said, Dad, what am I going to do, you know? What's going on? And my father, who talked more people into recovery than you can imagine, hundreds of people. He said, Doug, I've been watching you go face first into the sidewalk for years. I'm going to do you a favor. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You know, how are you going to help me? What are you going to do for me? He goes, I'm going to pick the sidewalk up and hit you in the face with it. I'm like, what? He goes, you've been having this trouble for years, and you're avoiding the issues. You're not working on yourself. You got to get to work. Because I'm going to get you into rehab. You need to go away for a month and work on yourself. Now, I had been to a rehab once before because he suggested. I went there for 2 weeks. I told him, yeah, blah, 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 whatever you want to hear. But I hadn't been drinking, so I didn't think I was powerless over alcohol. It wasn't an issue. Yeah, it was an issue. But I didn't know it. And just because you don't drink, that doesn't mean you're sober, man. And you couldn't convince me of that until...
I'm convinced, you're convinced. People who are working on their sobriety know this, that alcohol is a symptom of something else. And you need to get to that when you're ready.
So finally I said, all right. My father called the place up and he said, I got you a scholarship. You're going for free. There's a plane going to be there January 2nd. Get on the plane and fly down to Florida, and you're going to go get help. And I said, all right, I'll do it. You were ready. I wasn't ready.
You weren't ready. What, you were white knuckling?
Always. I had been white knuckling the whole time. But I was I was in enough pain that I was willing to change something. So I said, all right, I'll just, whatever you say.
Would you consider that your bottom?
Yeah, that was the absolute bottom. I've told you a list of bottoms.
Yeah.
And you know, I drank and blackout drunk the whole time in the teams. My very first water jump was after a full night down in. bars down in Key West.
I was standing on a ramp of a 130 with a hangover, and I puked on the ramp, and the two guys behind me slipped on the puke and rolled out the door on static line.
I came to as the ramp opened up and the light came streaming in the back of the C-130, and I'm sitting there in a parachute with my fins taped to my freaking shins.
I know.
I sat through a jump brief. I got dressed. I got on the plane. I don't know how the hell I did it. I woke up as they're going, stand up, hook up. And I go, holy shit, I've never done a water jump in my life. Go! And I just ran out of the back and figured it out.
Well, how many times have you been on bag, on dragger, closed your valve, take it out, and puked underwater?
Oh, yeah.
And put it back in and went back on bag.
Oh.
Fish food, we used to call it.
Fish food. Chum.
Yeah. Oh, God. That's craziness.
So I'm telling you this to say that I'm a bona fide alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I'd been dry, so I was like, I don't get any of this. And I went to Florida and showed up at a rehab, and there were 64 people, and they introduced me to this group. And there were 64 people there, and they go around the room and introduce yourselves. And they go all the way around, 64 people.
Took some time.
Hi, my name's so-and-so, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic addict. I'm an addict. I'm an addict. I'm an addict. There were 60 addicts. 61 addicts and addict and alcoholics, and there were 3 alcoholics at this place. I was the third one. But it was a rehab center. It was the steps, and that's what this place was.
So why I'm sighing right now is if you are at an AA meeting, talk about your alcoholism. If you need to talk about your cocaine and snot bubbles and a dope man, go to an NA meeting, because alcoholics don't want to hear it. Doug's been sober 26 years. I've been close to 14 now. And even when I came in 13 and a half years ago, if you spoke about drugs, they would let you finish your share and say, thank you for your share. This is an AA meeting. If you need an NA meeting and want to talk about your drug addiction, go to the NA meeting. So it's a pet peeve of mine. It's a resentment. I got to let it go, but it is one of my things. I'm sorry.
So I go to this place, and I'm like, these are all addicts, and what the hell? All right. So I stay there, and they go around the room. I'm so-and-so addict, so-and-so addict, so-and-so addict, and alcoholic, so-and-so alcoholic. Comes to me finally from 64 people. I go, hi, my name's Doug, and I have brain damage. I have the room erupts, man. They're all, this guy. And I went through 10 days of counseling for sobriety from drugs and alcohol. And I learned a lot with these people. And I learned good things. I learned bad things. And every day we would go to an AA meeting. And so we're doing this. And on January 12th, I'm living in a room with a guy who was a teacher in Camden, New Jersey. And he was
not far away from where you grew up.
Yeah, he was a crack addict. And the other guy was a businessman from New Jersey. And he was an alcoholic, and he was a crack addict. A crack, was it? Or what was the other one?
Meth?
No, it wasn't meth yet. Meth wasn't big yet, but it was crack.
Crystal meth?
Crystal, yeah. He was doing crystal. And crack. And then I'm with a heroin addict who was 18 years old, snot-nosed kid he wasn't out of high school yet. And he's in the room with us. And so I'm living in this room with these guys and, going along. And I'm going to these meetings and I'm learning, I'm getting the counseling, and I am just there learning. And we have a counselor who's talking to us. And
Are they all around a big book?
It was all around the big book.
Okay.
But it was counseling, and then at night we'd go to AA.
Big book is the big book of AA or NA, and that's
it is the book
program
that was written that tells us how. It gives us a format for how we get sober, how we run meetings, how we help each other out. So I'm learning, and I am just not accepting that I'm alcoholic, because the very first step of Alcoholics Anonymous is this. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And I was more than willing to admit I was unmanageable.
Right.
But I was not powerless over alcohol, because I stopped. When the doctor said you can never drink
You
again,
stopped that.
I never drank
So
again.
things weren't making sense for you.
So I was like, there's no way I'm powerless over this disease. I'm not powerless. I am not powerless. You can't convince me I'm powerless. Go ahead and try.
Show me the math.
And my counselor was
Because the
this
math is I've
woman.
abstained from it.
Yep, and my counselor was the smartest woman. I loved her. She was an older lady, just so good. And she didn't try to convince me of anything, but she just pointed out when I was mistaken. And
Did she let you get to your own mistakes by getting it out of you?
Oh yeah, no, she was.
Little Irish diplomacy.
She was sharp as hell.
Yes.
So I'm in this thing, and I'm doing it, and I'm learning, and I'm cooperating. And I have to say this: when I agreed to go to get help, I said, "All right, I'll go. I'll listen to you." And my father said, "There's only one thing you got to do. One thing." I go, "What is it?" "I'll do it." He says, "When you go to treatment, the only thing you have to do, you have to be honest. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with everybody in the room. If you can be honest, you got a chance. He goes, if you're not honest, don't even go." And I said, "All right, I'll be honest." And I took that to heart. So I went there, I told the truth. And there's all kinds of truth, and there's all kinds of stories we want to tell to make ourselves look better, feel better.
Our version.
Or lies of omission. And that is the biggest dishonesty you do. It's all the stuff that you don't. I'll tell you everything, but I'm not going to tell you this little part right here because this is. I'm ashamed of this, and I don't want you to know this. And we all have them. We all got things. I'll tell you everything, man. I'll lay my guts on the table. But I ain't going to tell you this deep, dark secret right back here because this is the one. This is the one that I don't want anybody to know about. And whatever it is, I don't care. It could be anything. Whatever.
Nobody's exempt.
No one's exempt. Everybody's got that. I'll tell you every single thing about me, but I'm not going to tell you this. And the two big feelings that I learned in this place are this. The two big ones that make us go back out. Guilt and shame.
Yeah.
We've all got them.
And it's hard for SEALs to ever move beyond that because there's so many things. I'll go back to your stuff in Lebanon. I will go on survivor's guilt. A guy didn't make it through training. You've been swim buddies who died.
I was in combat and I could have taken the shot and I didn't take the shot. I didn't do this. I didn't pull my weight here or there. Somebody died because
How old were you when you watched a kid die in a pool deck?
I was 18 years old.
He was 18 years old. You're watching this. My kid's 17, Owen, you know. I don't know how he would deal with this. But this is what you're force-fed. And you know what? The next thing Doug has an instructor yelling at him, this is why you want to pay attention, because that's the shit's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And you talk about burying stuff in the teams in a way of life.
First time I got in a gunfight, I was 19. I was picking up bodies. I had turned 20. And I was picking bodies up on the same deployment. I turned 20 on that deployment. And I'm picking bodies up by the handful.
My first encounter was when I got done. I got the runaround to get to dive school until somebody pulled me aside. This is the way to do it. Went to OSA school, like pick a duty station where it's a year. You could screen 6 months in.
Yeah.
Wanted to go to dive school, screened with the EOD detachment down there because there wasn't a dive locker. Yeah. They're like, you don't want to be a diver. You're going to be in Dunga Jams. You can be cool like us and go blow shit up. Yeah. Well, as soon as I got my orders, my replacement came in, they took me TOD to EOD. Yeah. It was like 5 months. They would let me do everything but cap in. Calculate charges, do everything. Show me about all.
Show me your math.
Yeah, show me everything.
Build the charge. Go ahead.
I just couldn't cap in.
Yeah.
In Cuba, have you been to Guantanamo?
I have.
Okay, so the Marines maintain the minefield.
Yeah.
And unlike other countries, Americans grid their minefields and you know where they are. So when American mines are outdated or they're become retrograde, they take them out and they put new ones in. Well, the Marines were out there doing minefield service. Remember the old thick Vietnam flak jackets and the diaper?
I wore that.
Okay, and you know the ballistic diaper?
Yes.
It basically looks like a pair of underwear shaped, but it's this stiff Kevlar stuff.
Thick.
Yeah. So this cat's out there doing APRS, anti-personnel mines, right? And the thing is, in parts of Guantanamo along the fence line, it's muck and stuff shifts. Well, he steps on one comes up, it blows his legs off.
Yeah.
And it blew his legs off his legs were blown off right where that V of that little diaper is.
Yep.
And I was 150 yards away. They went out and get him. They're bringing him back. we're helping with the comms. We had a long old Dodge pickup truck. We helped out with a lot of stuff with gear and this and that and getting people around. And that was the first experience I had. Well, nobody even said anything. The guy
Never.
died.
Never.
I think it was a Thursday. Friday morning, we came in. We did our long run.
Yeah.
We did field day. We went out to Cable Beach, had a few beers, and talked about it for 10 minutes, and we went on.
You never...
19 years old.
You never talk about any of it. And the Vietnam guys would come back, would tell us stories. It was all Vietnam vets when I
They
got
were all
to the
vets.
teams. They would tell you stories
half my
about
dad
stuff.
was Vietnam vet EOD guys.
But they would never tell you about any of the stuff they saw, the stuff that scared them or anything else. And you were not allowed to be scared. And the whole time I was in Lebanon, you were not allowed to be scared. And a guy in our platoon was, because he was the only one in our entire platoon, except for the chief, who was a Vietnam vet. He had 2 kids at home, and he was scared about getting blown up.
Yeah.
And so he would not go out and do the aggressive stuff. The rest of us would go out and do anything. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And I took prisoners over there. I did all kinds of stuff. And who cared? We blew in place mortars that didn't go off.
Yeah,
we did all that
boom,
crap.
yeah.
We bipped them. But when I got to this place where I'm working on my
guilt and
story,
shame.
Guilt and shame came up, and I had guilt and I had shame, and I have guilt and shame for all kinds of things, and whatever it is. I don't ever go into what it was I did with my sponsor, and I've told the story. But the reason I don't say what mine was is because of this. Everybody's got guilt and shame, and whatever it is, it's a big deal that you bury. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's sex. It doesn't matter if it's combat. It doesn't matter if it's somebody dying, you letting somebody die, you didn't cover it. Whatever it is, you've got this thing that's just...
It's eating you the fuck up.
It's eating you alive. And I could not give it up and hung on to it forever. And I wore this shirt the whole time I'm in rehab. And it was the SEAL team shirt. It's a stork, and it's got a frog in its mouth. The head is in the mouth, and the legs and the body are hanging out. And the frog has got the stork by the neck.
Never give up.
Never give up. And I wore that all the time in rehab. And my counselor looked at that shirt, and she just smirked at me, and she goes, "Oh, that shirt's just perfect for you." Because I wouldn't give up my guilt and my shame. And I hung on to it, and I wore it like a freaking medal. So I'm in that rehab for 10 days. And we had to go to AA meetings and NA meetings. And I go to these meetings, and I'm there. I'm not really participating, but I'm there. I'm listening. And I'll tell 2 stories. I'll tell the first one to address what John said, and I'll tell you what I learned about it.
Doug.
And I'll tell the second one where I got sober. And I'm hanging out with all these addicts, and they're doing their best, and these guys are working hard, and I'm not. I'm freaking.
Kick stroking and gliding.
I'm kick stroking. I'm not really working.
Middle
this
of the
program.
pack.
And it means a lot to these guys. And there's some young guys, some older guys, but I'm 35, and I'm way older than most of them. And we go to these AA meetings. And these guys, hey, you want to share? Yeah, people going around sharing. And really, when you share at a meeting, it's more about feelings and everything else. Alcohol is only mentioned in the entire 12 steps one time, in the very first step. And so we're working the steps, and they're talking. So I got guys in there, and this one guy is working hard. And I respect him because he's an addict that is really telling the truth. He's being sincere. He's
Very
really
granular.
Very granular, but he's really working
Articulate.
hard. Very articulate, young and very articulate and sincere. He was sincerely trying to work on his addiction and get better. And he's sharing in this AA meeting, and they go, "Hey, stop." They go, "This is Alcoholics Anonymous. You share about the disease of alcohol, and that's it. Or you work these steps. We don't want to hear another word." Basically, what John shared.
There are NA meetings.
And they said, there's NA meetings for this. And we went to NA meetings as well. And I don't say, so they hammered this guy. Well, I'm in this room, and I'm like, I don't know anything, and I really don't care. And I'm like, whatever. And they start hammering this guy. I'm like, what? I'm listening to him hammer this buddy of mine, and I'm getting inundated with this NA stuff and drugs, and I'm like, and I'm really angry, and I want to reach across the desk and freaking grab this guy and pull him over and pound him, but I'm not. I'm listening, and they dress this guy down. Well, this guy is like, he's in shape. He's like hurt, and the other addicts that I'm in the room with, we're being lectured by these guys. It was a meeting where you break off and you talk about the first 3 steps, and they're all upset. Everybody's upset, upset. So we go back to the where we live, and I get the phone and I call my father, who's been in recovery forever. My father only drank. Street kid from Perth Amboy, New Jersey, fighter, tough guy. And he got me in here. My father's helped so many people get recovery. I said, Dad, can you believe this? This guy's sharing, and they tell him no drugs and everything else. And my father, and this was when the 3rd edition of the Big Book was out. So all you new guys don't know, you're all in the 4th edition. The 3rd edition was out. And my father said, have you ever heard about acceptance? And acceptance is in the Big Book. It used to be on page 449. It's on page 517.
Yeah, it's a pushback.
And acceptance is basically acceptance is the answer to all my issues. Whenever anything anywhere is in front of me that I have a problem with, that's God putting that issue in front of me. Yeah. And I have to see what needs to be changed in me, not what.
Yeah, what your part in it.
What my part is, and I need to address it. And I go, yeah, I know what acceptance is. And he goes, go to the front of that chapter and read me the title, the name of that chapter. And in the 3rd edition of the Big Book, it's called Acceptance now in the 4th edition. In the 3rd edition, the title of that chapter was called Dr. Alcoholic Addict. The person who wrote Acceptance was an addict. Yeah. And he said, so he goes, whenever I'm in meetings and they don't accept it, this in there, I say, you better read the chapter and what the title is. So let me finish.
Go ahead. All right. I got one thing, and I'll shut the fuck up. Go ahead.
Nope. Let me finish.
Go.
So that's my background and where I come from. I got to say that I agree with John Hawley and what he's saying about alcohol and how we address alcoholism in the rooms. And that is this, that our primary purpose is to help people recover from alcohol and the disease of alcoholism. And that is what we need to focus on in the rooms. Because people will come in with all kinds of other things. And it's not just drug addiction, it's gambling, it's sex. And there's 12-step programs for everybody now, all based on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, to work those particular issues. And what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is we work on alcohol and alcoholism. So when people bring it up, instead of crushing them, I say, hey, you know what? Stick to what we're talking about here. Tell me about the steps. And that's what we do. And I do agree that what we need to do is focus on the disease of alcoholism and alcohol. But instead of crushing people.
Okay, so my only thing is I don't mind a person that has some tenure in sobriety understand that other things get mentioned. Yeah. But when it's all about the newcomer all the time. Is. So if you come into an AA meeting and the first 3 shares are about drugs, and there's an alcoholic that's trying to get sober, he thinks he or she is in a wrong meeting. Yeah, that's my beef with the whole thing. So there should be a caveat. Well, I'm going to speak about drugs now. This is about alcohol, and that because the thing is, the newcomer could get scared away by a lot of things.
Yeah, they do.
And we talk about
everything. If it's not perfect, it'll chase you out of the room.
It is. If you're pushing God, if you're pushing the Big Book, if you're pushing your amends, and we spoke about it, and Doug talks about this all the time. I've learned from him over the years. Meet people where they're at.
Yes, it is 100% how it has to be to get them in here, and they'll figure it out. But if you chase them out of the room with it, they're never going to get help.
It's like a sniper that's got some accomplished SEAL sniper, talking about dope and grains of bullets, right. And you got this cat who never shot a gun before.
Right.
What are you talking about this stuff to him? He doesn't even know what you're talking about. So that's my issue with meeting people where they're at in their sobriety. Because a lot of people are just plain out hurting.
And my issue with the whole thing, the reason I brought that up is this, that when you're going through recovery, at first you're all just raw in your feelings, and you got to get in here. And when you're in here, when they talk about working the program, that is learning all these things that we're talking about now on a granular level, and that's way beyond just getting in the front door.
Way beyond.
And all you need to worry about when you get in the front door is don't drink, go to meetings, and start working on your sobriety and talk to people.
Get a home group and a sobriety date.
And what I learned about alcoholism is this, and they broke it down for me when I was going through this rehab, that where it started to make sense. And they said, ism on the alcoholism is I, self, and me. And that's all your focus is. When that's all you can think about is I, self, and me, and you drink to solve your problems, you are crushing everybody who's around you. Your mother, your father, your wife, your kids, your sister, your cousins, your best friends. Everybody's getting crushed. Nobody matters except you and your disease. And that is the ism, the I, self, and me. And when you do that, you're cutting everybody else out. And that's your whole focus. And you can't get whole until you repair those relationships and those issues in your life. And I have to be careful about staying away from the I, self, and me. And I heard that, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a drunk yet. I'm not a drunk.
Because you stopped drinking.
And what I learned was this, that I was beating the piss out of myself over my guilt and shame. So one day, I'm in my room.
Rehab room or
rehab room with a teacher, and a businessman who are alcoholics. Mm-hmm. And then one guy cooks, the other guy cleans the house. I clean the house, I clean the toilets, and this 18-year-old kid. And we all got to take part in cleaning up this house. It's all part of our therapy. So we're doing a big field day one day in the house because we have
a field day in military terms is cleaning up stuff. It's not a fun time.
It's not a fun time. We had to clean the house, and I'm cleaning toilets and cleaning. And I'm 35 years old. I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm a Chief Navy SEAL who's got combat deployments. Everything.
Field day is way beyond you.
And I'm in there, and I'm just cleaning shit
with the Cadillac.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm mopping. I'm taking the shit jobs. I'm being humble. And this 18-year-old kid's sitting on the couch. And
you whip his ass?
I come out and I go, hey, listen, you know what? We're all pitching in. You got to get a job, you know? And they've given him a job, and he's not doing it.
He's shirking, as we would say.
Yeah, he's shirking. He's just hiding.
He's skylarking.
He's just sitting on the couch like,
oh, he's not even skylarking. He's just not doing it. He's shirking.
He's just shirking. I go, hey, man, you know, get him help. Pick any job. What do you want to do? You pick the job. You do that one, and I'm cleaning toilets. I got the crappy job. You pick a good. I'm not doing anything. And I go, no. This is part of our therapy. You know, you got anything you want to go ahead. Listen. And this 18-year-old punk starts. And I go, hey, man. You know, I'm trying to help you. Yeah, come on, get up. I get his ass off the couch. I go, come on, man, anything you want. He rips away from me. I'm not doing anything. And he gets in my face like, fuck you. And that was the last thing that kid ever saw. I grabbed him by his throat. Wham! Slammed his head into the wall. Lifted him off the ground with one arm, and I'm like, fucking good. And I choked. His face was the color of my shirt.
Very
before
nice.
The other two guys in the room come and grab.
Good.
They go, Doug, and I don't hear anything. I am just seeing red. I'm like, oh fucking kid. And I didn't even put two hands on him. I was just like, and this kid goes, and blood rushing from his face, and I just squeezing his fucking carotid arteries, and I'm like, you're gonna die, you son of a bitch. I was so angry. And these guys were like, Doug, let him go. And I finally go, holy crap, and I let him go. That kid freaking just went to the floor.
Did he yell at him and say, get the fuck up, you pussy?
He couldn't yell.
Did he yell at him to get the fuck up?
No, I didn't say anything. He gets up. He's staggering all around the room. He runs out the front door. And these two guys, they're big dudes. They're looking at me like, they won't touch me. They're like, Doug, you can't do that. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. You know, I come right back down to earth. And I'm like, man, I fucked up. And they told us in there all the time, if you touch another person who's in
to get launched out of rehab?
Sex, fighting, you're gone. You're
Did you get launched out?
And they're like, you're done. Well, my father knew the guy ran this place. He knew the owner. He knew the people who ran it. And I hang out in my room for about an hour, and then somebody comes down and they go, hey, come here. And they walk me over and they take me in the big office and they go, listen, if anybody touches anybody, we throw them out of here. You're getting one chance. You got to go down the hall and see this guy. And I'm like, what? And they go, walk down the hall. Last room on the right, go. So I'm walking down this long hallway in this
going to
business
XOI?
Office. It's like going to XOI. I'm walking down the hallway, and there's a...
XOI is a precursor before Captain's Best.
Before you go to Captain's Best. So I walk down the hall, and there's a room, and the door's open, and it's dark. All the other offices are open. There's people working, and they got their blinds up and everything. I go down there. There's no windows. The room is dark. There's a chair, big leather chair with a big high back and a little table right next to it and a little lamp. And it's like a 40-watt bulb, and they're very dimly lit.
It's blinking kind of.
No, it wasn't even blinking. It was just
some eerie
there,
music on.
just sitting there. And then there's a desk against the wall, and this guy's sitting at his
With
desk.
smoking a cigar.
Big dude working his desk. He spins around in his chair, and I come in. He goes, sit out right there. I sit in this little light, and he's dark. I can barely see him. He goes, you know why they sent you here to see me? I go, no, I don't know. He goes, I spent 7 years in prison for killing my wife and her lover in my bed. But you're angry.
Oh, jeez.
And I go, holy shit. He goes, tell me about it. So I tell him my other story. So the story I haven't told any of you yet is this. When I was at SDV's and I had my first accident, and life was rough, and I still had to go keep diving, and I had drowned in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And, getting back in a boat and diving for hours in an SDV when you've drowned and then had a diving accident, and 4 other people in my AOT class, my advanced operator training class, had diving accidents. Every other time people were getting in the boat, the rigs were failing on them. And I was scared, and I called a buddy of mine and said, man, I need help. I was home on a Sunday, and I read it was a thing called a newspaper back in the day. And on the front page of the Sunday Times, in the lifestyle section, it was the top 10 signs of depression for old people who were going to nursing home. And I had never read it before. And I said, the top 10 signs of depression, let me see it. And I had 9 of them. Oh, I've got that. I've got that. I've got that. I've got, yep. The only one of the top 10 signs, and the signs are like not sleeping well, not eating right, not going to work, isolating. Those are signs that you got a problem with depression.
It scared the shit out of you.
And I'd been diagnosed with depression, but and they said, do you want drugs? And I was like, fuck no, and I wouldn't take them. I read them all, and the only one I didn't have, suicidal thoughts. I have never once contemplated suicide. Here. And I have been in some bad stuff, as you guys have heard, and I never thought about killing myself. And so this guy, I told my buddy this, and he said, hey, you got to go see a doc about that. And this is why I was at STV team. So I went to, he said, he was at Dev Group, and he said, I'll get you in with the psych down here. Because there were no psychs at the teams back then. No team had a psych. That didn't even exist. But Dev Group had them. And he goes, I'll bring you down here, and you're going to meet with the psych. He'll help you. So I drove down to Dam Neck. This guy got me a pass to get in because you could not get in that compound for anything. I got in the compound. The psych comes out and meets me. And I won't ever tell his name, but there's a lot of older team guys who know the guy. And he brings me back in his office, and we're talking, and he says, "Hey, tell me about yourself." I tell him my story. He's like, "I think I can help you. I can help you work on your depression." He goes, "But we're going to keep it totally between you and me. We won't tell anybody. And no drugs. Well, I think I can help you." He goes, what I need you to do, you need to come back and see me and bring your wife in here. And I'm like, yeah. Because my marriage was in bad shape. And I bring my wife there one time. And we meet, she talks, she tells, he goes, yeah, I can help you guys. And I'm like, great. And then I'm a team guy, so I never went back again because I'm on deployments and I'm here and there and I'm all over the damn place. But my wife starts going to this guy, and he helps her get into Regent University, work on a master's degree, blah, blah, blah. So I go to a rehab before I went to this one that I'm telling you guys about. I was there for 2 weeks and blah, 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 and things are getting better. And the big thing about brain injury is this, that I had zero emotion, and I could not be intimate with my wife about anything, and we weren't having sex, and we just weren't. And it wasn't that I didn't want sex, but it was that I couldn't emotionally connect with her. And she came to this thing, and I told her all these things and secrets and blah, blah, blah. And I told her that only one time in my whole career as a team guy, one time did I screw around on her. And I got a blowjob from a hooker down somewhere. And I told her that. I admitted it. And I felt like, oh, free. I told her my secret. And we had sex for the first time, and it was great. We were connected. And then she said, I got to tell you something. I'm like, what do you have to tell me? She goes, I've been in an intimate romantic relationship with that psychologist. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, we're like together. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I bared my soul to this guy, told him my deep, dark secrets. Freaking, he had my career hanging in his hands, and he was screwing my wife. A psychologist who you're supposed to go to. So I never went to another psychologist. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I go to this rehab, and they're like, you wanting to talk to me? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding? So I tell this guy, I'm in his office, this deep, dark office, and I tell him this story. The guy who killed his wife.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me, he goes, all right.
You got to pray for them.
And he goes, there's a way out. And I go, what's that?
Oh, my
he
God.
goes,
This is funny. I've heard it.
You got to read.
Not funny. It's, you'll get it.
The way to get better with this is you got to read Freedom from Bondage in the big book. Freedom from Bondage used to be the last story. I think it's second to last. It might still be the last story in the big book. And it is about if you have a resentment, and a resentment is a feeling that you have over and over again. People usually equate it with you're angry at somebody, but that's not all that resentment is. But
I equate resentment with an expectation.
Yeah.
That doesn't come to fruition.
And it is when
I hear you.
You have this deep, dark feeling against somebody else, and you have it over and over and over again. And I hated this guy, and he lived in the back of my head my whole adult life after my wife told me that. And then she was like, you can't be angry at him, you can't. And so I had to keep stuffing it. And I'm bringing that up because this is what we do. As alcoholics, when we have feelings we can't deal with and we don't have any way of dealing with them, we do what's called stuffing it. And we just shove it down, and I will never talk about it or think about it again. And I don't mean just because we're drinking. I mean from the time we were little kids. I was told, don't cry, don't freaking... Your feelings get hurt, you get up and you wipe the dust off and you just
walk it off,
keep going. And that's what I did my whole life, man. Scared in buds, scared I was going to get hurt doing something, or scared I was going to quit. I just freaking stuffed that feeling. In combat, stuff it. We got to go, man. You got to go. Well, I rode a barge full of fuel into the beach, and then they started dropping shells on the beach as we were coming in. I'm sitting on a causeway section with a fuel bladder on it as big as the causeway section, and just expected to die and didn't jump off.
Well, I think
but these feelings that you just stuff and just like.
I agree with that, but you're Catholic.
Yeah.
As Catholic, I believe when it's you take its punch is punched.
Oh yeah.
So I never was scared and worried and about stuff, but I always felt in the back of my mind when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Oh, yeah.
So it didn't matter what I was doing because people died doing stupid shit.
Me too.
And real stuff. So that was never even like a
And to me, I treated it the same. Whatever, man. I didn't.
You're going to do it anyways.
I didn't do this. I didn't die this time. And I stuffed all those feelings, but I stuffed these bad feelings about this guy. I just stuffed it, put them away. Like, all right, I can't do anything about it. And
well, there's a whole other thing here, bro. In my counseling, she's great, and I asked, like, why do SEALs and occupations like SEALs go and do shit when they know it's going to suck?
Yeah.
And we do it
anyway.
We do it anyways, whether it's a firefighter, a cop, whatever. And you do
30-degree water. You got to get in it, and you can't get out till tomorrow morning.
You do it. I mean, it's an interesting experiment.
We flip a lot of switches in our brain.
And you talk about burying shit because you know this is going to suck.
You know it. And that's what I did my whole life, was bury that shit. Lebanon, buried it. Never talked about it again. Yeah. I didn't talk about any of it. Nobody. I didn't tell anybody. Like,
dude.
Or you tell them a 2-second thing. And the Vietnam vets, they would tell you one little 2-second, we killed somebody.
I had forgot about the Marine who got his legs blown off.
Yeah.
And then another thing where my first diving thing in EOD, I was a duty diver in Rhoda, and kid fell off a pier, and I had to do a jack stay. Circle search.
Body search.
Yep, got him over to the sponson of the Zodiac. Boyle's Law, he pukes Budweiser all over me. I'm like, I'm never drinking Bud again.
Yeah.
We got him in a body bag.
Yep.
I had not thought of those two things, until I just recently went to counseling in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff, but this stuff is traumatic.
Oh, yeah. And you did.
And you buried it, and you never talked about it.
I had to go find a black family's 5 kids walked in the water, drowned down in Florida. All the kids got swept off the sandbar. They died. The next day, EOD, the dive school, the dive locker, and NEDU, we had hundreds of divers searching for the body.
Yeah.
And me and another guy, at the end of the day, at 5 in the afternoon, we're in the water swimming, and we kicked up all 5 bodies. We had to drag them in and put them in bags. And I never even think about that. Just shut it off. These little kids, man, these little kids just bringing their body in and putting it in a bag. And you shut it all off. But back to this guy in this room.
Yeah.
And I got to forgive this psychologist. I am so angry. I'm just like, telling the story makes me so angry. And if I really get into telling the story about the guy, I mean, literally. And the guy, by the way, happened to have tried out or played for the Baltimore Colts. Mm-hmm. He was a big dude, the psychologist. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to tear him apart with my hands. I didn't want to shoot him. I didn't want to stab him. I wanted to kill him with my bare hands. Mm-hmm. I wanted to tear his eyes out. I wanted to freaking pound him to death. And I was just, and I'm telling this guy who killed his wife. And he goes, you got to go to the back of the big book and read Freedom from Bondage.
Yeah.
And so I go, what is that? What is that? What are you talking about? And he says, Freedom from Bondage. And basically this is what it says. It says, you got to look at your relationship with that person. And then you got to figure out what you want for yourself more than anything else. And you got to pray for the person you hate to have exactly what you want for yourself. And this guy tells me that. I'm like, are you fucking... Now, this is a big guy who killed his wife in prison. He spent 7 years in prison. I go, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like getting in his face. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not going to... I'm not praying for this psychologist to have good sex with my wife. Mm-hmm. And this guy looks at me and goes, I didn't tell you to pray that. He said, I told you to pray for what you want for yourself. Go home and do it. I went back to my room. They kept me in there. I read Freedom from Bondage because he made me. And every night I went back to my room after that. First night, God, let Dr. blah, blah, blah have good sex with my wife. Second night, let him have good sex. Third night, oh, God, this is killing me. Fourth night, I'm like, what am I praying about? You know, what do I want? And what that chapter made me do is think, what do I want for me? Mm-hmm. What do I want for me that I could pray for that guy to have? And I'm like, I start thinking about the doctor, and I'm like, my God, this guy's a Navy commander who just screwed around with my wife.
With personal information about you, probably using it as leverage.
And
As an angle.
I felt he'd never used it, but I felt he had the angle on me.
Of course he did.
I felt that. But he never said that. And I'm like, I could go turn this guy in. Hey, I can get his medical license. And the people at the rehab are telling me, you got to get this guy's medical. Oh, they told me later on. I'm like, I got to have this guy's medical license. I can fuck him. I can fucking kill him. And I'm like, wait a minute. This guy's a fucking Navy commander. And he is screwing around with an E6's wife. Like, what's going on with him? And I start thinking about him. I'm like, what's wrong with him? He's a married guy. He's got kids. He's got grown kids. What's he doing risking his career to be with my wife? And after a while, I'm thinking, man, something must be wrong in his life. This guy must be hurting to have to do that. What's going on with him that he's willing to risk all that?
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I started to feel bad for that guy. And I'm not talking a day, but I'm talking days of praying. And I'm like, what the heck? And I go, what do I really want for myself? And that was the biggest thing. What can I pray for? And finally, it took days. I go, why am I here? Why am I in a rehab? Why am I in these rooms? What am I trying to get? What do I want from AA? And I figured it out. All I wanted, the reason I was there, I just wanted to feel peace.
Some serenity.
That's all I wanted was peace. I didn't want to feel this uncomfortable, disturbed feeling. And when I said that, I was like, oh my God. And that I could pray for another person to have, no matter who it is. I could pray for them to have peace. And I started praying for him. And the minute I started to pray for him to have peace, you know who got peace?
You did.
Me. And they say you have to do that every day for 2 weeks. And I did it at about day 10. And I had peace, and I have had peace with that ever since. And that's what the 12 steps of AA have given me. And that's why I'm here. Because there's peace in working these steps. There's peace in going back through your life and seeing the good and the bad. That's an inventory. There's peace in turning your will over to a power greater than yourself. And this God thing killed me. And I found that after. But when I started doing what you guys suggested, first thing I had to do was admit that I was an alcoholic. And I still couldn't do it. And the 10th day I'm on that rehab, January 12th, 1999, we go to another meeting, and I'm there going, oh, God, here I am in another meeting, and I got to listen to this bullshit. And I'm sitting in a meeting, and people are sharing. I'm going, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. This is bullshit. And the front door of this place, about 10 minutes into the meeting, opens up, and this guy staggers into the room.
Yeah.
And there's 50 people in there. It's a big room. And there's people all over the place. And I'm in the back left corner. And this guy staggers in. He staggers all the way around the room. And there's empty chairs everywhere. He staggers all the way around. And he comes and he sits right next to me, drunk as a skunk. Boom, sits down.
What was he drinking?
Vodka. Breathing vodka all over me. And I'm like, oh, God. You know, and I'm not doing anything. I'm not even reacting. I'm just sitting there. And he leans over. He's blowing vodka all over me. Going, this is the biggest bunch of bullshit I ever heard in my life. Listen to these people. You know, blah, blah, blah. He goes, man, I got 3 DUIs and blah, 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 but I'm not an alcoholic. This is so stupid. Watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. Anybody else want to share? He goes, yeah, I want to share. He stands up. Blah, this is a bunch of crap, and you people are idiots, and blah, bullshit, and blah, blah, blah. He's alive. And I'm sitting next to this guy as he's standing there yelling at people after he's chewed my ear for 10 minutes. This is the stupidest thing I ever heard of, and for the first time in my life. And if anybody doesn't believe in God, good on you. God sent this guy in to stand right next to me. And I heard my words, my thoughts, my inner feelings coming out of this drunk's mouth. For the first time I said, holy crap, that's me. These people have been listening to me spew bullshit for 10 days. I'm so full of shit. And I'm not being honest. And then he finished. Anybody else want to share? And I go, yeah. I raise my hand. And I go, my name's Doug, and I'm an alcoholic. And 60 heads whip around all the people that I'm in this meeting with. They're going, what? Because I've been fighting with them for 10 days. Like, I'm not an alcoholic, I'll never say it. And they whip around, they look at me. And I go, for the first time I heard my words coming out of somebody else's mouth. And I understood for the first time that I'm a freaking liar. I lie to myself every day, and I can't handle alcohol. And they were like, holy crap. And then somebody else in the meeting told me this. And they said, you didn't think you were powerless over alcohol? I go, no, I didn't think I was powerless because I stopped and I never picked up again. And the guy looked at me and goes, all right, let me ask you this. When's the last time you went to your refrigerator, opened it up, got out a brand new carton of orange juice, and drank the whole thing? I looked at him and I go, that's the stupidest thing I've heard. What are you talking about? He goes, yeah, when's the last time you didn't finish whatever alcohol you had? And he was 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a can of beer, I drank it.
It was somebody else's can of beer.
If it was somebody else's, I drank it. If it was a six-pack, I stayed until it was gone. If it was a case, we're going to finish it. If it was a bottle, a keg.
You're going to float it.
Yeah, whatever. I stayed until it was gone. I did not have an off switch. My off switch was when I blacked out drinking. And I go, holy crap. I think I'm powerful over alcohol, but I have no control over it, over myself. Once I have one sip, one drink of beer, and I'm off to the races. Mm-hmm. I do whatever I think I want to do. And that's ego. Ego is easing God out. And that's what we do in these rooms. And believe me, I didn't pray. They told me to pray. Whatever. I'll just be quiet for a few minutes. I don't want to hear God. I don't want to hear anything. And I'm not a Bible thumper in the rooms. I'm not a Jesus pusher. I'm not anything. Because I learned this when I drowned, when I died, when I woke up. I shut myself off from God. I grew up Catholic. I never prayed again. I never did anything again because I thought God saved me from drowning. And I could never ask for anything again. And when I'm in the room with this guy, and he told me I had to forgive this doctor who screwed around with my wife, this guy who killed us. He said, "Let me ask you something." He goes, "Can you forgive this guy for what he did?" I go, "I don't know." He goes, "Can you forgive yourself?" And I said, "No." And then he said, "Can God forgive you for whatever you did in your life? Whatever murder, sex, offense, whatever your deep secret is, can God forgive it?" I said, "Well, yeah. God can do anything. God can forgive it." And then he looked right at me and said, "Who do you think you are? You think you're better than God?" And I was like, holy shit. And he said, "Not only do you have to forgive that guy, you got to forgive yourself."
Yes.
And if you can't do that, you're going to die. You got to give up your secrets. You got to give up your resentments. And you got to give up your self-loathing. And when you give those up, you got a chance. And he was 100% correct. That's what this program's about. I had to get a sponsor when I got back out of rehab. And I did very well in rehab. When I came back here, I said, "Listen, I don't know how I'm going to get sober, but I'm going to do what I learned." And what I learned was this. I got to follow directions. I got to do what you tell me to do in here. And I've been sober a long time. I still have to follow directions.
Well, you're a continuing learner. Of the years I've known you in sobriety, you don't stop with the program. You don't graduate.
You don't.
The people that don't go to meetings, and I say this, is like your alcoholism is not taking any days off.
It's out in the parking lot doing push-ups, just waiting.
It's probably taking GHG and test right now, waiting for us.
It's waiting for you.
But we're crushing it right now. We're
My
fucking putting that thing to rest.
is waiting in the parking lot.
And the more we do this, the better it is.
And my sponsor, he's the one who made me. He said, "Listen, I heard a guy who was sharp, and he's over 35 years sober now." And he said, "I said, I want to work with you. You got it." He was a drug and alcohol counselor at the Navy rehab back in the day. And he was an E5 in the Navy. He was an SBU guy. And I said, "Man, I want what you got." He said, "All right, I'll work with you." He said, "But you got to be willing." And I said, "All right, whatever you say, I'll do." He said, "Well, this is what we're going to do. You want to work with me? You're going to call me every day." I said, "All right, you got it." He said, "You're going to read something from Alcoholics Anonymous every day." All right, I'll read something. He said, I don't care if it's a sentence, a word, whatever. You're going to read something every day. I said, I'll do it. And then he said, and you're going to pray every day. And I was like, whoa, whoa. And he said, well, then go find yourself another sponsor. I said, wait a minute, you got everything. He goes, you're going to pray every day. And I said, I can't pray anymore. He said, do you believe in God? I said, yeah, I believe there's a God. And he said, well, then you say a prayer. I said, I can't pray to him. And I told him why. And he said, listen, right now you're doing AA. This is all you need to know. There's a center to the universe. Mm-hmm. And you're not it. You're not it. That's all you need to know about God.
I know, I'm not it, you're not it.
And he said, so this is your prayer. This is your whole prayer. And you're going to say it every day. And I said, oh, God, here we go. I'm going to have to read the book of Psalms or something. This guy's going to kill me. He goes, you're going to ask God every day. You're going to say, God, ease the pain. That's your whole prayer. He said, don't ask God to take it away because the pain is yours. You created it. Mm-hmm. He said, but you ask God to ease the pain. That's your prayer. And so I started praying that. I didn't believe, I didn't have any connection, but I started saying that prayer. And then I prayed everything else that you guys told me to pray in the rooms. I said the Lord's Prayer. I learned the prayer of St. Francis and the Serenity Prayer. And another guy who was kind of my sponsor before this guy said, hey, do you know the whole Serenity Prayer? And I said, yeah. And the whole Serenity Prayer is at the end of step 3 in the 12 and 12. And it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God's will, not mine, be done. That is what Bill Wilson wrote in the 12 and 12.
Yep.
That is not the whole Serenity Prayer. The whole Serenity Prayer was written by a guy named Reinhold Niebuhr. Mm-hmm. And this old alcoholic with 25 years at the time, who was in the 506th Airborne at the end of World War II. He missed going to Germany, and they sent him to Japan. Mm-hmm. Bad alcoholic. He said, you're going to say the whole Serenity Prayer. He goes, here it is. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Mm-hmm. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, mm-hmm. seeking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is and not as I would have it, knowing you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Now, I was a badly brain damaged dude when I came to learn that. And I said, I can't remember it. He said, you can do it, and you will do it. And you start reading it, and you start saying it. And I staggered through it, and I wrote it down, and I learned it. And that prayer saved me more than one time when I was going through some rough spots, man. Mm-hmm. Hardship is a pathway to peace, and I got to just turn my will over. And by doing that, by accepting what these people told me to do, mm-hmm. and following all the other rules and regulations that you guys gave me, life got better. And they said, it'll get better. We're not promising you a rose garden, but this is the gift of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's come true for me, all of them. They said, you're still going to hurt. You're still going to have feelings. You're just going to have bad times. I've been through the death of my brother, my father, my daughter, who died from this disease. I've seen it happen. I saw a daughter raped. I've seen friends die, friends go back out. I saw a good buddy of mine who has first 3 years of sobriety go back, drink, go through diabetes, get his leg amputated all the way up to his crotch, and then he got MRSA and died.
Just watched a couple of years ago, Jim Bulow died.
Jim Bulow died. There's people who die from this disease every day, and the reason they die is because they're doing it their way. And I had to give up my way, and I had to take on your way. And by doing that, by accepting it, it doesn't mean I got to give up being a man. I don't have to give up being a SEAL. I don't have to give up anything. what I got to give up is listening to the committee that's between my ears all the time.
Not a great neighborhood.
Bad neighborhood. And I got to live a lot more in here, and I got to reach out and help other people. And when I get in the blues and I get hurting, the first thing I got to do is pray, and the second thing I got to do is get up and go help another alcoholic. Do anything. Do something nice, or any other person. If I do something kind for somebody else without anybody knowing it, without them knowing it, without telling anybody or asking any praise for anything I did, I'm doing it for my higher power. And it makes me feel better every time. It keeps me from picking up the drink. And you guys gave me that secret and made me do it. And that has saved me more than one time, man. I went through a divorce. I lost my whole family. I got remarried, I had another kid. I watched my daughter get addicted to opioids, prescription medicine, and I fought tooth and nail with her.
And she's in the medical field. She was in the medical
doctor.
field.
She wound up becoming a nurse and got told not to come to work because she was showing up high on that stuff. It suppressed her respiratory system. She went to the hospital one time while she was in college to be a nurse. I had to fly out to Utah because they thought she was going to die, and she came back here, and then her mother went and found her. Actually, what's today, 13th? Mm-hmm. Today, 2 years ago, her mother went over to her house on Sunday morning and found her dead at the foot of her bed and called me. Called her brother. Her brother called me. I had to go over with the body of my daughter in that room. Rigor mortis set in. My daughter was propped up against the wall like a surfboard while they tore her whole room apart investigating whether she killed herself or not. She didn't. She didn't write a note. She didn't. It just suppressed her respiratory system until she died. And this disease will wreak all kinds of havoc. And I could go to get revenge. I could go to blame God. I could do all that stuff, or I can just keep going and helping the next person do better.
We went to the funeral, Seals in Recovery, and it's unbelievable to see him work through this. And my good friend said that he is looking up to heaven, and he knows that his daughter's not in pain anymore.
Yeah, that's it. I know she's not in pain.
Yeah,
God's taking care of her, and she was atheist. And it broke my heart that she was an atheist and didn't believe in God. And nothing I could
Well, you delivered her to God at Eastern Shore Chapel, so she might have went kicking and screaming, but she went out the door.
She did.
Yep.
But you guys gave me the tools to handle it. And that's what this program does. No matter what the crisis, no matter what the situation, I did not even contemplate drinking or trying to suppress those feelings.
Yeah. With that being said, there's the program and there's a fellowship. Do I like the framework of AA? I do, because we're in the Navy and there was rules and regulations, so you have the steps, traditions. And I like that. But the real thing in this is the fellowship.
Yeah.
What's in between the preamble and the 7-step donation.
Yeah.
And then coming out the door with alibis or non-AA related announcements. And that's what it's about. And me and Doug feel the same way about this as far as fellowship. You call it whatever you want to call it, mentorship, swim buddy, shooting buddy, whatever you got to call it, and it becomes your tribe. Yeah. And I'm a big 90 and 90 guy, 90 meetings in 90 days. It's great foundational stuff for AA, but what it does is 100%. You are going to find a meeting you like, you're going to find people you like, and you're going to start developing your tribe. And I firmly believe it's connection is protection. And what we have in our group internally with SEALs in Recovery and externally, I went to a civilian meeting with Doug this morning where both came from the civilian pipeline, is we have great friends in recovery that are civilians, and that's part of our accountability and fellowship. Yep. How could I go out drinking because I broke a nail, and Doug has lost a daughter to addiction, and he has serenity knowing that she's in a better place and she's out of pain. I mean, this is the whole thing with the accountability and fellowship. I mean, I got to make one phone call to him or another couple guys in the SEALs in Recovery or my sponsor for me to hear what time it is And they throw the bullshit flag and say, this is what you need to be doing. And they're not saying it because they don't know what they're making it up. They're saying it because they've been through it.
Yeah.
And they don't want me to make mistakes, and I don't want the folks I'm having impact in making mistakes. It's all corporate knowledge, and that comes with going to meetings and working on your steps and sobriety
100%.
And getting your tribe straight.
Getting your tribe straight, getting your head straight, and following directions.
Yeah.
And we have to follow directions when we're doing this thing, and when we've been here a long time. And when my daughter died, what did I do? I had to go right back to step one, which is I had to admit I was powerless over her disease, and that life was unmanageable. And then I had to admit I was powerless over her death. Life's unmanageable. And then I had to go look for my higher power, step 2. Then I had to turn my will over, step 3. Then I had to do an inventory of her life, my life, what did I do wrong? I had to go through all that. Then I had to share it with somebody. I had to tell people, hey, this is where I might have failed, or boom. And people like John said, hey, man, get a hold of yourself. You did your best.
There's nothing else you can do.
Nothing else you can do.
You led by example.
That's it.
And that's another thing. You can't. We spoke about it earlier about meeting people where they are, and it's so important to attract people into this program. There is nothing else you could have done. The only thing you could have done is shackled her to something or threw her in jail, but that would have worked for a period of time, and it would have right back to where it's going to be.
I never try to shackle any addict or alcoholic because I know you couldn't have shackled me.
Exactly.
You couldn't do it.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's a program of attraction, but people go out. People, we still show up and they got to do an inventory why they went out. Let's see what you did wrong. Let's get back on this path and try to do it right and put some footholds or handholds in place that they kind of missed. I believe meeting makers make it. I think there's a lot of people I know that don't go to meetings, but they reach out to other people every single day. They're in some type of a group that is recovery related.
Because alcoholism is I, self, and me. And it's me isolating, hiding out, not being around people. That's what we do. And that's when we drink. That's when we behave badly. And when I'm accountable to somebody else, I'm in a group and I'm accountable, I'm not as likely to let the committee in my head take me down a bad path. And my sponsor told me this. He said, listen, you're going to call me every day. You're going to reach out. You're going to do it. Not because you want to, but you're going to do it for the connection. And
connection's protection.
You're going to stay connected, and that's what you have to do. And even when I would travel, and I traveled for the State Department, I was in Afghanistan with State.
Yeah.
I was in Africa with State.
I went to an AA meeting in Beirut when I was there last time.
And you can either find a meeting out there, you'll find somebody else.
A few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can't, guess what? I got a tiny little big book. I'll just read something every day. Just got to stay connected. I got to pray, and. I don't always hit my knees, but a woman when I came in was sharp. She said, "Listen," she said, "they told me you got to bend your knees when you pray," and I was like, I pray wherever. It doesn't matter to me. She goes, "No." She goes, "When you bend your knees, you bend your will," and so I do that sometimes. I got to get on my knees and bend my will to God. And say, "Hey, I'm on my knees. I'm humble, and I'm telling you, I can't do this alone." And when it's so freeing to ask for help, it's so freeing to be in a group where you say, I'm hurting and I need help, guys. And they told me that the secrets that we carry weigh tons and they crush you. And whatever secret you got, as soon as you can share whatever that shame is, the guilt, whatever that secret is, if you share it with another alcoholic, you cut it in half. Your grief, your shame. And I shared with these guys, I told them what was going on, and it cuts the weight in half. Every single time you do it, you cut it even further in half and further in half until it's manageable. And that's what you guys do. You make
you do too.
Manageable.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you.
Yep. So, like Doug said, God's forgiven you. Forgive yourself. Give yourself a break. Give yourself some love, man, because carrying this guilt and shame is bad. I've done it. Doug's done it. And just who are we to not forgive ourselves when God has forgiven us?
Who are you?
Thanks, brother.